It starts with the image of a young boy there, playing around ignorantly and saying, "I am a mage." "You there, beast, take my magic." The little girl opposite him happily replied, "I'm the beast, and I'm going to gobble you up, Mr. Mage." Then he raised the wooden stick in his hand, taking a stance. Then the boy slammed it hard, right into the middle of the little girl's forehead. The girl winced in pain, shouting angrily, "Why did you actually hit me?" But the boy didn't feel guilty at all, boldly asserting that beasts are supposed to be defeated by mages anyway. So the girl demanded, "Then I want to be the mage too." He selfishly objected, "No way." The girl kept arguing, "That's not fair." Just then, Rebus approached from behind. He greeted them with a gentle smile. "You kids sure are energetic so early in the morning, aren't you?" The two children politely replied. The innocent boy asked Mr. Rebus, "How do you become a mage, sir?" He answered honestly, "It's not something you can just become because you want a kid. Mages are the pinnacle of humanity, reigning at the highest level of our society. They're the nobles and knights who control the mystical powers passed down from their ancestors. So unfortunately, you kids can't become mages." The boy's father stood behind them, feeling somewhat helpless. "What are you telling the kids, elder? And is that story actually true?" Rebus asked, bewildered. "What story?" He explained bluntly. "I heard a beast has appeared." Rebus confirmed solemnly, "It's true." That made him feel anxious. "What?" Rebus quickly explained. "Last night Rob said he saw it at the edge of the village, its whole body covered in pitch-black shadows. Said it was a leopard as big as a house. But don't worry, the village chief has gone to the city to invite a mage back. I'm sure he'll get one, and the beast will be destroyed." The villagers sighed in relief. "Well, that's lucky then." Then they warned the village children. "Did you hear that, kids? You aren't allowed in the forest for the time being." Rebus picked up a branch and reminded them, "You guys be careful too. If you're not a mage, it's almost impossible to kill a beast." The boy's father asked worriedly, "Does everyone in the village know yet?" He nonchalantly confirmed, "Of course." He asked further, "What about him?" Rebus asked, confused, "Who do you mean?" He mentioned, "That guy on Hisril Hill, up on the hill where the sheep are resting." He explained to Rebus, "That shepherd, Turan." Turan was lying on the ground, looking up at the sky, surrounded by sheep. He muttered to himself, "I'm bored to death. The scenery is exactly the same. Every single day is the same." He closed his eyes and sighed in annoyance. "At this rate, I'll probably forget how to talk." Suddenly, Turan heard a scolding voice. "You useless brat." Rebus leaned on his cane and nagged. "The sun hasn't even set yet. You're so young and already being lazy and slacking off." He snapped back angrily, "You're blocking my sun, move it." This made the old man furious. "You little brat, how disrespectful." He asked helplessly, "Are you still holding a grudge about the old days?" Turan acted like it was nothing and asked back, "What old days?" "You mean the time after my mom died, when you tried to secretly turn the flock into public property?" His exposure made Rebus feel awkward, causing him to clear his throat. He sat up abruptly and asserted, "Yeah, if that's what you mean, then you're right. I'm petty as hell, and I'm not generous enough to share my mother's legacy. We aren't even close enough to ask about each other's health. So if you're here for something, say it fast, and then get lost." Rebus shouted angrily, "You brat." Turan's eyes darkened as he questioned, "What?" Rebus composed himself and reminded him, "A beast has appeared." Turan nonchalantly asked, "A beast?" Rebus gently stroked a sheep's head and announced, "Word is it's a leopard as big as a house. Rob spotted it and is out telling the villagers now." Turan commented dryly, "That's quite a big deal, isn't it?" He asked worriedly, "Aren't you scared? You're the easiest target around here, you know? I don't know what you're made of. Anyway, the village chief has gone to fetch a mage, so you'd better be careful. I only came here personally because I was worried about you." Suddenly, Turan interrupted, "Grown-ups aren't honest at all. Why don't you just say you're worried about the sheep instead of me?" Being called out, he shouted furiously, "You disrespectful little brat." Turan smirked and ordered, "Hey, old man, if you're done talking, then beat it. Your breath stinks so bad it's practically deafening my nose." So Rebus had no choice but to leave, fuming with rage. Turan's gaze stiffened. Beast was the term for animals possessing mystical magical power. If humans had mages, then animals had beasts. Would a mage really come to this backwater village for a beast? Am I finally going to see a mage in person? A mage invited by a rural village chief probably isn't top tier. He smiled excitedly and blurted out, "Well, I want to see for myself at least once." In his heart, Turan wondered how strong they were. And then suddenly he smelled something. Turan's gaze froze as he realized the scent was blood. Sunset gradually descended. Turan walked slowly, looking a bit dazed. It's clearly this way. Suddenly he realized something. Turan's steps faltered, his eyes staring blankly in one direction. Turan saw Rabus's body on the ground and called out nonchalantly, "Rabus, you told me to be careful, but you're the one who kicked the bucket first." He was somewhat shocked inside, not expecting the smell of blood to be coming from old man Rabus. Then Turan began to speculate. This wound wasn't caused by a normal wild animal. It must have been a beast. Suddenly, at that moment, Turan looked up in surprise. He saw a monster nearby, towering high and stepping toward him. He just stood there calmly. The leopard monster stepped out, staring intensely at Turan. Down in the village, the boy asked curiously, "Are beasts really that strong, Dad? Can adults really not win?" The adult quickly replied, "They're very strong, son. If a normal adult like me jumped in, there wouldn't even be bones left." He asked in confusion, "Even you couldn't win? Then what will our village do?" The man reassured him softly, "Don't worry, the chief has gone to get a mage. The mage will destroy the beast for us." The boy asked anxiously, "A mage won't lose, right? The mage will teach the beast a lesson, won't he?" He nodded and confirmed, "Of course, they are great people born with magical powers. With just a single word, they can kill a beast instantly." Turan glanced at the monster next to him, his lips moving slightly, "Die." And just like that, the leper monster was blown far away. However, it didn't die. It just bared its teeth and growled. The aura around Turan's body radiated intensely. He asked himself nonchalantly, "Didn't work?" While Turan was still dazed, the leopard monster charged again. He shouted a command for it to stop, so the leopard monster backed away. Turan smiled slightly and muttered to himself, "I knew I couldn't kill it instantly, but not even being able to make it stay stopped? Jeesh." The leopard monster aggressively smashed a nearby boulder. It gnashed its teeth, staring at Turan with pure rage. He didn't just stand there anymore and slightly crouched down. Turan exhaled, making up his mind. If that's the case, then. He grabbed a stone in his hand. Turan pulled out a shepherd's sling and shouted, "A shepherd's gotta act like a shepherd." At that same moment, the leopard monster lunged straight forward. Turan commanded the stone to harden and used the sling to whip it far away. Turan's eyes reflected the image of that stone. Then he swung the sling hard, commanding it to accelerate. Turan's foot lifted slightly for momentum. A flash of killing intent sparked, and he shouted loudly, "Pierce through." A powerful burst of energy shot forward, aiming straight for the leopard monster. The energy blast knocked it down directly. Fresh blood splattered everywhere. Turan's energy blast continued to tear powerfully through the air. Then the leopard monster fell face down on the ground, its mouth hanging open in a silent scream of disbelief. Turan approached slowly, thinking to himself, "The target is from above." The stone was still hovering in the air. Right as he cried out, the stone dropped and slammed right into the leopard monster's head. The heavy stone hit with such force that it caused a massive explosion. Turan stood silently looking at the smoke in front of him, watching nonchalantly as the leopard monster was destroyed, telling himself, "That's the first time I've used that on a beast." Turan quietly asked himself, "Should I dump the body in some valley?" Then he clicked his tongue in annoyance, doing another anonymous good deed for those people in the village again. His eyes reflected the image of the monster. "I was originally a mage. I realized I had this special talent 8 years ago. Back then, Turan could control objects. On the day I turned 10, he sat on the ground, making everything float." Turan excitedly called his mother. "Mom, look, these logs are floating in the air." But his mother didn't say anything. So Turan called out again, "Mom." He kept showing off for her. "I have the talent to create fire, and I can command the wind too." The memory of that day remains vivid in my mind, never fading. His mother screamed angrily, "Stop that right now." That was the first and only time my mother had ever been that furious with. Turan blurted out in shock. His mother then gently took the floating log and called softly, "Turan." His mother sat down beside him and suggested, "Come here. Sit down and talk with me for a bit, son." She asked tenderly, "You still want to be with me for a long time, don't you?" Turan nodded sadly and confirmed, "Yes, ma'am." Hearing that, his mother instructed, "Then promise me this. You must swear that from now on, you will absolutely never use this power ever again." She reminded him painfully, "And you must never, ever reveal this power in front of anyone." Turan couldn't understand and looked up to ask, "But why, Mom?" She then explained slowly, Do you still remember the stories about the nobility and the knights? He replied innocently, I remember. Then Turan started telling his mother. People generally call those who possess this power mages, whether they are nobles or knights. But the nature of nobles and knights is actually two completely different extremes. Nobles are the descendants of the Freyan people, the gods who descended to save humanity in ancient times. Knights are actually the descendants of those nobles, but their blood has been mixed with mortals. After listening, she praised him. That's right, you remember very well. Then his mother began her lecture. That is why people must distinguish clearly between nobles and knights, even though both belong to the mage class. I will explain to you why you're not allowed to use this power. Turan, she revealed a shocking truth to him. Because you inherited that power from your father, a knight. Beyond the borders of this village are so many wicked nobles. Those nobles always look down on knights as nothing more than their slaves. She looked straight into her son's innocent face and reminded him, so you must engrave what I say into your heart. Absolutely no one can be allowed to know you are a mage. Turan's mother asked softly, can you promise me that? To this day, 8 long years have passed since that day, and I have always kept the vow I made to my mother. That promise will definitely never be broken. I have no intention of exposing my identity as a mage, nor do I have the slightest intention of leaving this mountain to go down into the world. Turan's eyes slowly opened. Suddenly, from outside, there was a banging on the door and a shout. Turan, get your face out here now. He slowly went out to open the door. A group of people with grim faces stared intensely at Turan. After hearing what they had to say, Turan let out a long, tired yawn. So what you're saying is, he questioned nonchalantly, that I'm the one who murdered Rebus? They immediately grabbed his collar and asserted, exactly, you really are a shameless brat. The man scolded Turan angrily. You killed old man Rebus and then dumped his body out there as bait for the monsters, didn't you? After hearing the accusations against him, he just stood there silent. After a moment of silence, Turan spoke up. I understand why you're deliberately trying to frame me. They were stunned. What? Turan explained without any hesitation. The oldest man in the village had to die alone, instead of you young, cowardly men who weren't brave enough to face the monster. I see clearly why you consider this your best way out. He smiled and expressed, it's such an easy way for you to avoid responsibility and push it all onto my head. Turan just leaned back slightly and was able to dodge a blow. In his heart, Turan thought, magic is indeed extremely convenient. As long as I desire something strongly enough, it will immediately become reality, and the only price to pay is mana. Turan whispered softly, fall down. And just like that, the person opposite him fell flat on their face. I don't even need to light a fire. Just a small influence like this, to make everything look natural and not too obvious. Just enough so they don't lose their lives. I will use pressure to subdue them. While thinking, Turan performed professional fighting moves. A series of wooden sticks were knocked into the air, and it had been like this for 8 long years. I have successfully hidden the fact that I am a mage. After finishing up, Turan lightly dusted off his hands. He sighed nonchalantly and reminded them, you should have spent that energy taking care of Mr. Rebus's funeral instead. Then he turned to the women and asked, are you guys here to cause trouble too? A girl quickly denied it. No, we came here to see you, Turan. He was silent for a moment and then suggested, take this bunch of idiots down the mountain. Then Turan went inside and took off his shirt. Turan thought to himself, the neighborhood below is definitely going to be in total chaos again. They'll probably use this as an excuse to drive down prices every time I go down there to trade. Fine, I can teach them another lesson until I get a fair price. After thinking that, Turan breathed a sigh of relief. I've given them a beating they won't forget, so they probably won't dare come back again. Suddenly, he heard banging on the door again and blurted out in annoyance. Again? Are these people actually crazy? Outside, the banging continued. Turan went out and shouted angrily, whoever you are, do you really want to get? However, when he saw the tall man in front of him, he stopped short. Turan asked softly, who are you? He replied apologetically, I'm truly sorry. I thought I might be able to ask for a little help for my journey, but it seems I've come at a bad time. Turan looked up at him and assessed. A group of guests? Then he spoke. No, I'm the one who should apologize. It's just that some uninvited guests came here to stir up trouble. Turan asked himself, Mom also taught me about etiquette, but is this polite enough? I've never had a decent conversation with anyone in this remote town, so it feels really strange. Anyway, a group of guests carrying weapons appearing in this dull town of all places. Then Turan spoke. If you're looking for a place to rest, he let out a sigh. Then Turan suggested, please come inside. A table full of food was laid out. Turan said honestly, we're not very well off, so I'm afraid there's no fine dining to offer our guests. Kian replied while eating, but this is already a feast. Anyway, you surprised me a bit. Have you never met any strangers from far away? Turan nonchalantly confirmed, that's right, I was born and raised right on this hill. I've lived as a shepherd ever since, and it's very rare for this tiny town to have any tourists visit. While drinking water, his eyes suddenly froze. Turan also picked up his glass and drained it. Suddenly Kian commented, that's very interesting. He couldn't help but turn in confusion and ask, huh? He bowed his head and explained slowly, for someone who grew up here as a shepherd, you are exceptionally well-versed in polite behavior. Your parents must have raised you very strictly. Turan answered honestly, I learned those things from my mother, but she passed away a few years ago from serious illness. Kian remarked happily, she raised a son to be proud of, so I'm certain she is now resting with the gods in the heavenly palace. I want to sincerely thank you once again. Turan replied nonchalantly, I'm just living exactly as my mother taught me. Then he asked curiously, but what brought you to this remote countryside? Kian smiled and replied, I was just commissioned to handle a small matter. He asked with a bit of surprise, a small matter? So he explained, people are looking for someone capable of destroying that black leopard monster. I am a mage. Hearing this, Turan's face stiffened. He spoke softly. Then you must be the mage our village elder mentioned. He admitted nonchalantly, that would be me. So, may I take the liberty of asking you a question? Turan responded quickly, please go ahead. Kian then inquired, I clearly sense the presence of a monster around this area, yet I don't see a trace of any ferocious creatures nearby. What's even stranger is that you clearly know about the village chief and that monster. Yet you are unusually calm and haven't made any move to flee or hide. If that monster is targeting humans, its target could very well be you. Aren't you scared at all? You seem remarkably brave for a shepherd who's never set foot out of this town. Who exactly are you? An answer was spoken. A mage returning to the past. Turan innocently asked his mother, why can't I let people know I'm a mage, Mom? She replied worriedly, because of those terrible nobles out there. He kept asking curiously, terrible nobles? His mother explained sadly, if nobles were just shepherds like us, then those knights would be no different from the dogs that nobles keep in their houses. They might treat you with love like family, but they're ready to sell you off or turn you into a scapegoat whenever they feel it's necessary. I never want my child to live a life like that. Turan, you really want to stay with me, right? Turan replied innocently, yes, ma'am. Then she instructed, so remember this. No one can know my son is a mage, especially other mages. If they catch a scent, they will separate us and turn you into one of their hunting dogs, then be ready to discard you at any time. And to avoid having your identity as a mage exposed, you might even have to take someone's life with your own hands. Turan's gaze was cold and sharp. He wasn't joking at all when he mentioned that. Ultimately, things had come to this. Kian tried with difficulty to break the silence. Why are you so quiet? He also realized that Turan was being completely serious. Kian could only manage a forced laugh. Seeing that serious look on your face totally takes the fun out of my joke. Only then did Turan's facial muscles gradually relax. He let out a sigh of relief. So that was just a joke? He spoke up as a reminder. Forgive me. I've never been particularly sharp when it comes to banter. Kian also stood up and approached him. No, the fault is mine. I'm the one who should apologize for causing you such confusion. Turan laughed and explained, it's just that this is the first time I've ever heard a joke about mages, so I was a bit taken aback. Kian acted polite as well. Your reaction was so interesting that I guess I took the teasing a little too far. He held out his hand. I just realized we haven't had a formal introduction yet. It's a pleasure to meet you. Kian smiled as he introduced himself. My name is Kian, a lone traveler. Turan returned the handshake. That was very rude of me. I should have been the one to introduce myself first. He smiled. My name is Turan, just an ordinary shepherd. The two of them sat down at the table for their meal and began a friendly conversation. Turan mentioned, I just turned 18 this year. Kian replied, as for me, I've already stepped into my 75th year. Hearing that, Turan was surprised. You still look much more robust and younger than your actual age. Kian didn't hesitate to explain. Mages usually age slowly and have longer lifespans than ordinary people. Turan asked curiously, what made someone like you choose the life of a wanderer? The question made Kian nostalgic. I decided to leave after 60 years of service to the Arabian clan. He recounted, in these twilight years, I just want the freedom to go here and there without being bound by anything. Turan thought to himself, that sounds like such a free-spirited and romantic ideal. Their conversation went on for so long that Turan felt a sense of warmth, getting to converse in such a pleasant manner. Kian also laughed happily throughout the evening. The atmosphere inside the house gave Turan a sense of gentleness and peace as night fell. Being with such a virtuous person, he never expected it would feel this fascinating. They talked until the first light of dawn peeked through the mountain ranges outside the window. Kian suddenly realized, is it already this late? Turan smiled. You're right. I was so caught up in our chat that I didn't even notice the sunrise starting to break. Kian pushed back a chair and stood up. It's time for me to continue my journey. He pushed a coin across the table. Take this Arabian silver piece. This is the purest silver. It's surely more than enough to pay for my meal. He pushed a coin across the table. Take this Arabian silver piece. This is the purest silver. It's surely more than enough to pay for my meal. Before leaving, he glanced back lingeringly. Who knows? Maybe I'll come back here a few more times to bother you for a bite to eat. The sky gradually brightened over the hills behind the town. The sheep contentedly grazed on the vast grassland. Turan called out loudly, gather up, everyone. Hearing the noise, the sheep raised their heads and gradually started walking toward him. Turan rarely felt as relieved as he did today. This was the first time he had ever interacted with another mage. But more importantly, how long had it been since he'd had such a comfortable conversation? He happily patted a sheep's head. That easygoing demeanor and natural sense of humor always radiated from the man's words. He was warmer than any adult Turan had ever met. At sunset the very next day, Kian appeared at Turan's door again with a wolf he had hunted slung over his shoulder. I'm back. Turan marveled. He truly is a respectable man. He completely changed his own perspective. Before, he had always thought knights were just soulless machines, constantly manipulated like tools by the arrogant nobility. Now, how was he supposed to report this to the village chief? On a trail in the forest, Kian was walking along, thinking that the land of Israel was now clear of monsters. He quietly observed his surroundings. The fallen, broken trees around him reminded Kian of something. The traces of a battle were still there, but there was no longer any scent of a monster. He stopped in front of a massive tree where the trunk had cracked from a stone being embedded in it. Could the monster have been destroyed already? Kian stared at it pensively. Who could possibly be capable of hunting it down? Or did the village chief secretly hire another mage besides me? He let out a soft sigh of relief. But regardless, it's a relief. As long as the monster is eradicated and everyone is safe, that's all that matters. A gut feeling made Kian snap his eyes open, suddenly on high alert. He quickly whipped his head around. The massive paws of a leopard monster slowly stepped forward along with a foul, black stench. Its head had completely deformed into a hideous, grotesque shape. Even so, the sheer pressure of this leopard monster's power radiated pure danger. Kian was momentarily stunned. Wait, is this a monster's race? He backed away in fear. Who could have been so irresponsible to let this happen? The leopard monster quickly raised its paw to attack Kian. Its claw strike made the ground shake violently, but Kian luckily leaped away to escape. He regained his composure and analyzed the situation. If a monster's corpse isn't absorbed or its mana purified after death, it mutates into a vengeful wraith like this. A mage who specializes in hunting monsters would never make such a basic mistake. The leopard monster continued to lung wildly at Kian. He was utterly baffled. Clearly, the one who finished this monster must have been a mage, but why did they just leave it to become a wraith? Kian wondered, did they really not know the consequences of leaving that mana source behind? No, even the greenest rookie should know such a fundamental thing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to face it in the first place. A golden sphere of mana gathered in Kian's hand. Or perhaps they had some other motive. Whatever the case, I have to destroy it right now. The mana transformed into a long beam of power as Kian controlled it to attack the leopard monster. But it seemed this ultimate move couldn't inflict any damage on it at all. Kian was astonished by the leopard monster's strength. My magic has no effect at all? That means this monster's mana is far beyond my control. He suddenly panicked when he saw nothing left before him but a pool of black liquid. Where did it go? Kian struggled to deduce. Is it planning to use magic to counter magic? Where is it? From a shadow behind him, a bubbling stream of liquid emerged. The leopard monster appeared behind Kian with a fierce roar. It slashed him before Kian could dodge. His arm was heavily wounded, bleeding profusely. This wasn't an opponent an ordinary knight could withstand. It would take someone at least at the level of a low-ranking noble to have a hope of winning. Kian was knocked backward, seemingly becoming exhausted, his breathing heavy. I never expected a high-level wraith to appear in such a remote mountain village. I guess life really is full of surprises. I never expected a high-level wraith to appear in such a remote mountain village. I guess life really is full of surprises. He hung his head, his eyes dark with despair. Kian bared his teeth. But I won't go down easily. Even if I have to lose my life, I'm taking you to the grave with me. Massive mana surged into his palm. I'll pour all my remaining mana into my hand and hit it with a direct blow the moment it lunges. The leopard monster lunged at the same time. His face was filled with sheer determination. He leaped first, and the leopard monster raised its claws high. Right then, a massive surge of mana flew in from another direction. It blasted the leopard monster away just as it was about to attack Kian. Debris rained down, leaving Kian stunned. The leopard monster had been taken down, lying motionless on the ground. With just one strike, the attacker spoke up. "Are you all right?" Kian gave a soft laugh and replied, "That shepherd's joke of yours really can give someone a heart attack." He turned to see Turan calmly approaching. "Turan?" Kian was surprised. "So it turns out you are a mage." Turan admitted, "Yes, that's right." Kian instinctively asked, "Why did you hide it from me before?" The long silence left him feeling helpless. "Fine, let me ask this instead. Why did you step in to save me just now? You were more than capable of leaving without getting involved." Turan's lips moved, because late at night at Turan's house, the wolf lay motionless on the ground. He tilted his head curiously. "Why go to all this trouble?" Kian didn't understand and asked back. "What do you mean?" Turan explained. "I don't know what the village chief promised you, but I believe with your abilities, you could easily earn much more money with far less effort." Kian laughed out loud. "They really are quite pitiful people." Turan lowered his head in silence. "What's so pitiful about them?" Kian leaned back comfortably. "They live here on the border, always trembling in fear without even the most basic protection." Turan interrupted. "That's not your responsibility or your fault, is it?" Kian thought otherwise. He expressed, "A mage's calling is to be the inheritors of the god's power. That's why we should live with the pride of protecting the common folk." He closed his eyes and sighed. "Perhaps not every mage shares my ideals. Everyone has their own thoughts and their own path to walk." Thinking about that made Turan smile slightly. He replied calmly, "Doesn't everyone have the right to choose how they live?" The leopard monster regained its strength and suddenly attacked the two of them. Kian quickly regained his composure and warned, "Listen to me. This isn't something we can face." He was firm. "It's a monster you can't win against. Unless you're a noble. Hurry and inform the village chief, and help everyone evacuate immediately." The leopard monster had transformed into a pair of eerie blue eyes with a twitching body. Kian stood his ground to face it. "I'll stay here to hold it back." He looked at the leopard monster worriedly, thinking, "I'm talking tough, but I don't even know how much longer I can hold out." Turan suddenly interrupted. "It won't be a problem." He manipulated a stone by the roadside. "I believe if that last attack had hit the mark, everything would be fine." Kian was dazed. "What are you mumbling about?" Turan's calmness made him silently realize. Could he mean that last strike wasn't even his full power? A young knight living in seclusion in the mountains who has the ability to hunt a wraith that requires noble-level strength. And in reality, the veteran knight Kian pondered this deeply. What he was witnessing right now wasn't merely a chance encounter in the countryside. The countless small stones floating in the air under Turan's mana weren't the impulsive actions of a young knight wanting to break away from the noble class. They erupted all at once with Turan, making the mana around him become remarkably abundant. This scene unfolding before his eyes. He smiled. This could very well be the beginning of a mage who will turn the whole world upside down. Turan replied to Kian, "I'm actually quite curious about my own true limits myself." Hearing that, Kian grew angry. "I absolutely won't allow you to act like that. No matter how outstanding your talent is, that entity is still an extremely terrifying opponent. He demanded, when the leopard monster bares its claws, we need to coordinate together. But before it could even attack, Tehran struck first, sending it flying far away. Kian finally realized the gap in their strength. No, at this point, if I jump in, I'll only be a hindrance. I couldn't even react to that last hit. He withdrew the mana from his hands. I can't be of any help at this very moment. What needs to be done now? Kian wisely stepped aside to observe Tehran's exploding, powerful mana, essentially letting Tehran's talent shine brilliantly. Though Tehran looked calm on the outside, he seemed to be having a hard time. Damn it. He leaped back to dodge the attack of the leopard monster, which remained unscathed, the strike having had no effect whatsoever. Kian shouted a reminder. You can't finish off a wraith with normal physical attacks. Tehran backed away from the leopard monster's line of attack and asked, then how am I supposed to destroy it? Kian's reminder came. Use fire. Tehran raised his hand, his eyes glowing. Kian hesitated. Or lightning would work too. A bright red flame flew out, scorching the leopard monster's hide. Tehran frowned in confusion. Still no good. Kian yelled, not that way. He thought silently. To impose a mage's power upon another living creature, establishing the law of causality is the most basic prerequisite. Don't tell me he's completely clueless about the most elementary knowledge of mage. Kian suddenly understood. Could it be? He watched Tehran's back as he nimbly dodged the leopard monster's pursuit. Was he the one who killed the monster and then just left it to become a wraith? Does that mean in his entire life, Tehran has never once absorbed mana? Kian had no choice but to shout his instruction. Don't just stop at lighting a fire. Create it and then launch it at him. He couldn't help but be amazed by this surge of power. But has he already reached this level of strength? Tehran stopped running. He channeled his mana, and a bright red flame appeared in his hand. Kian watched everything from the side. If you're a mage, creating fire isn't that difficult, but controlling it requires specialized training. Tehran raised the flame high, and it turned into a massive blaze. It made Kian exclaim in shock, and yet he could do it instantly? Tehran sprinted forward and threw the glowing red sphere at the leopard monster. The large flame quickly engulfed it, its body burning violently as the leopard monster rolled on the ground in agony. Kian shouted, maintain your focus. You need to constantly channel mana so the fire doesn't die out. With his thorough guidance, Tehran gradually succeeded. You have to burn away every trace of that wraith's existence. The flickering light of the fire illuminated his focused eyes. Before long, the leopard monster stopped struggling. Kian breathed a sigh of relief. We've won. He still hadn't recovered from his shock. That was truly an irrationally strong wraith entity. A wraith that would require at least noble-level strength to have a chance of fighting back. Kian's pupils contracted, and yet he was able to take it down. Tehran turned and asked Kian, is it really over? The contrasting image shook Kian to his core. A shepherd living high in the mountains could pull off such a miracle. Kian stepped closer. If you don't want to face another wraith, go ahead and absorb the mana first. Tehran asked, confused, how do I do that? Kian instructed, imagine you are taking something deep into your body. Tehran raised his hand. All right. His eyes were tightly shut as a large stream of mana flew out from the leopard monster's body. It gathered under Tehran's hand and then entered him. His eyes also shimmered with the power of the leopard monster. At that moment, Tehran could feel the surging mana flowing through every vein in his body. This new sensation left him shaken. Kian smiled and explained, you'll feel a certain unique sense of pleasure. Even seeing it with my own eyes, I still find it hard to believe. He asked again, so this really is your first time absorbing mana? Tehran clenched his fist. Yes. Kian watched his back thoughtfully. After the first awakening, the mana source will grow over the years. The best way to increase power is to destroy beasts or other mages and take their mana. He calculated. But this is Tehran's first time absorbing mana. Yet he has the ability to control magic with such proficiency. This proves his innate potential is on a completely different level. Kian finally realized, meaning this young man is... He spoke up, Tehran. He looked up, what is it? Kian bowed formally. I've been very impolite to you. May I be so bold as to ask which clan you belong to? Tehran hesitated. Kian replied respectfully, yes. Tehran looked at the bloody arm and reminded him, you should clean the blood off yourself first. After returning, Kian had also bandaged his wound. He repeated once more, please forgive my disrespect. To have someone as noble as you have to get your hands dirty with things like this. I can only sincerely apologize. Turan replied angrily. I've told you many times that I'm not anyone noble. I'm just a shepherd. I don't even know who my father is. He frowned. So please stop acting like that. Kian gave in. All right, don't look at me like that. He wondered, but why would a powerful mage like you choose to be a shepherd? I don't mean to look down on you, but this job doesn't seem to suit you at all. Turan recalled. It was my mother's wish. She told me to live like this until she passed away. Kian mused softly. Your mother's wish, huh? Turan repeated his mother's warning. Down at the foot of those mountains, there are only cunning nobles. If your identity as a mage is revealed, they will only use you and throw you away without mercy. Kian showed regret. She was indeed a wise woman. Turan was also surprised. I'm a bit shocked. I thought you'd think it was just overprotective parenting. Kian replied. Your mother wasn't entirely wrong. He bowed his head, his face somber. Mages hold great power, and great power always comes with conflict. Only 20-odd years ago, a fierce war broke out between the great clans. Kian's memory was full of tragedy. It was the battle between the Arabayan clan, which I once served with all my heart, and the great Zahar clan. No one knows how many lives were lost in that war. He recounted. Out of about 3,000 Arabayan knights at that time, over 900 were killed. Nearly a third of them fell. Turan was extremely interested in Kian's story. How bitter. All those close to me were among that fated one-third. Turan was extremely interested in Kian's story. How bitter. All those close to me were among that fated one-third. He remembered sadly my brother Denver, who always talked about opening a laundry after the smoke cleared. My teacher man, who strictly taught me because I still had so many shortcomings to learn from, and both my wife and my beloved son. All of them were killed by the Zahar clan. Only I was left as a survivor. Kian was silent. That's why your mother was right in a way. A knight's life can be extinguished more pointlessly and fragilely than even a commoner's. He reminded him. However, there's one thing she underestimated, and that is your innate talent. Turan was curious. My innate talent? Kian scratched his head. It's embarrassing to admit this in my current pathetic state, but I was actually a fairly capable knight. Yet you were able to easily destroy that bizarre wraith entity. Something even I couldn't subdue. He evaluated. Your potential isn't just limited to the level of an ordinary knight. At the very least, you've touched the noble rank. Kian glanced at Turan. And among those, you definitely belong to the upper class in terms of quality. Turan also spoke up. My mother said my father was a knight. Was that just a lie? Kian was intrigued. In a few rare cases, a child with qualities lower than a knight can be born into a noble family. Or vice versa. A child with noble qualities is born into a knight's family. Looking at it that way, I think it's best you leave this hill to venture out and explore the vast world outside. Turan was surprised. Why is that? Kian replied with goodwill. Because we humans are desperate for more talented nobles and knights. Humanity still hasn't completely dominated this world. He pensively recounted stories from the dawn of time. Other races rejected by the gods are always lurking for an opportunity to rise once more. Kian's voice grew slightly angry, and in that context, the nobles only obsess over fighting each other for power. The door opened slightly. That's why this era is starving for strong nobles with kind hearts like. Before leaving, Kian asked, above all, you aren't satisfied with this tedious life of shepherd yourself, are you? The question made Turan go silent for a moment. His back showed a hint of loneliness. What could I possibly achieve down there at the foot of the mountain? Kian didn't have a perfect explanation for that question. That depends entirely on what you want. He smiled friendly. Wealth, fame, status, family, or true friendships. Whatever it is, it's extremely hard to find in a place like this, isn't it? Kian turned his head and didn't forget to remind him. Just imagine, you could perform acts of justice like me, destroying the monsters threatening the people. He left with one final suggestion. Or become an explorer, setting foot in lands no one has ever known, or maybe even get adopted by a clan and walk the path of power. Who knows? Turan ran after Kian to the door, listening to his analysis. I think you have a point. He stood, facing Kian. It would certainly be much more interesting than herding sheep here all year round. Turan gave a wry smile. For the first time in my life, I'm actually curious about the world out there. Kian's encouragement seemed to be working. Even so, I'm also worried I'm sowing groundless expectations for you. I will always support whatever path you choose. He suddenly remembered. Oh, right. What exactly is your bloodline ability? I should have asked this from the start, but Tehran looked bewildered. What do you mean, bloodline ability? Kian bowed his head. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting you don't know much about magic. He explained. Bloodline abilities are the traits that nobles inherit from their ancestors. For the Freyan people, whether or not you possess a bloodline ability is the dividing line between a noble and a knight. Kian raised his hand and created a sample magic flame. Is there any spell you find particularly easy and natural when performing magic? Or some innate ability that doesn't rely on magic? Tehran clenched his fist and guessed. It's not just the fact that I'm very strong, is it? Kian replied. Just having mana is enough to enhance a mage's physical strength. Tehran remembered his physique. I have a very keen sense of smell, and I'm also quite good at throwing stones. From that, Kian made an inference. If your sense of smell is exceptionally sharp, that could be considered a bloodline ability. He rubbed his chin thoughtfully, and the ability to hit a bullseye every time with a ranged weapon is one of the hallmarks of the Arabian clan. However, that's also a fairly common trait. Kian asked with interest. Keep going. Tell me more. Tehran nodded. All right. After a while of talking, Kian reached a conclusion. I see. Tehran asked worriedly. What's wrong with you? He couldn't help his curiosity at Kian's serious expression. Why the sudden look on your face? Kian spoke up. I think I've realized it. Which clan your ability has the clearest resemblance to? Tehran tilted his head. Which clan is it? Kian kept his head bowed from start to finish. A prestigious great clan. He recalled the savagery of that clan along with his own past pain. Known by the title of the Trackers or Master Hunters. The people who must bear the loss from the war are the Zahar clan. Those who faced the Arabian clan head-on years ago. Tehran was stunned, unable to believe those words. The Zahar clan. Cold sweat couldn't be held back and began to pour down his face as his eyes widened in shock, silently repeating it. The great Zahar clan. Thinking of this, Tehran swallowed hard and secretly glanced at Kian, who was silent beside him. Are you saying I share the same bloodline as your enemy? He gently pressed his lips together, his thoughts in complete disarray. What should I even say to him? Should I apologize? But those were the actions of relatives I'd never even met before, basically complete strangers to me. Suddenly, Kian called out Tehran. Hearing that, he quickly responded, Senior. Before Tehran could say anything, Kian lightly patted his shoulder in reassurance. Don't look so worried. You weren't involved in that war yourself. Even so, Tehran still felt deeply uncomfortable about it. But Kian gave a somewhat relieved smile and advised him. That's a matter for the older generation. If blood debts are always repaid with more blood, then grudges will never truly end. Hearing that, Tehran suddenly asked, Don't you regret it? Kian's eyes flickered for a moment before he asked back. Regret? What exactly? A gentle breeze drifted by, carrying his somewhat heavy words about telling me to leave the mountain. Kian lowered his gaze slightly before explaining in a deep voice. If you leave the mountain and pursue power, sooner or later you'll end up joining the Zahar family anyway. After all, you're incredibly talented. But I believe in your character. Kian's words left Tehran completely stunned. What? He raised his head and looked at him with complete trust in his eyes. I'm talking about the kindness inside you. You saved my life and even revealed the identity you spent your whole life hiding. On the other hand, if someone like you were to join the Zahar family and rise to a high position, maybe you could prevent a brutal war like that from ever happening again. The more Tehran listened, the deeper he sank into thought without saying a single word. Seeing that, Kian stepped forward and walked past him. Before leaving, he sincerely advised him once more, well, there's no need to think about it so heavily. After all, you still haven't even decided whether you'll join the Zahar family or not. Seeing that, Kian stepped forward and walked past him. Before leaving, he sincerely advised him once more, well, there's no need to think about it so heavily. After all, you still haven't even decided whether you'll join the Zahar family or not. He gave a faint smile and turned to look at Kian. I want to try leaving the mountain. Hearing that, Kian laughed in satisfaction. That's a very good way to think. But then Tehran added, just not right now. Standing face to face with Kian, he calmly said, I'll leave the mountain after your injuries have fully healed. Those words filled Kian with gratitude. How kind of you. It's only a few scratches. You really are a good person. Sometime later, inside the warm wooden cabin. Kian spoke seriously in a deep voice. To use magic, you absolutely need mana. That's why mana is often called a master key. Sitting across from him, Tehran curiously repeated, a master key? Kian's serious voice rang out again. It's not completely omnipotent like the name suggests. But to use magic, you need an amount of mana that matches it. Tehran asked in confusion, what determines whether the mana matches the magic? He calmly continued, I'll explain that right now. As he spoke, he raised 3 fingers. The difficulty of magic is mostly determined by 3 factors. First is bloodline, second is compatibility, and third is the law of causality. Kian then explained each point to Tehran one by one. First, bloodline is determined by the blood you're born with. This applies to most nobles who aren't knights. For example, it's very difficult for you to heal my wounds with magic, right? Hearing that, he answered, that's right. An image of a distant land immediately surfaced in Kian's mind as he continued explaining. But for the Ravista bloodline from the south, that's something they can do even without training. That's the power born from bloodline itself. Tehran lowered his gaze toward his own palm before asking, what about the second factor, compatibility? Kian immediately continued, you can think of it as familiarity. It's the concept that a mage can manipulate things more easily when they love them or are already familiar with them. Hearing that, Tehran immediately understood. Like how I create fireballs as if I'm throwing stones. Seeing that, Kian stood up in satisfaction. Exactly. If you were simply creating flames normally, you probably wouldn't achieve that level of speed or destructive power. And the final factor is the most important one, causality. Even I still don't fully understand it myself. At that point, Kian suddenly asked a question. What would happen if you intentionally used mana to directly kill me? Though confused, Tehran still answered honestly. Maybe a few sparks would flash from my head. And that's it? As he spoke, Kian stretched out his hand and cast magic on the cup sitting on the table. That's exactly what happens when magic fails, because causality is missing. As electricity danced around it, bubbles slowly appeared inside the once empty cup as if the water were boiling violently. When there isn't a suitable cause for a desired result, and when the intended goal is far too difficult to achieve, that's when this law comes into effect. After listening and observing carefully, Tehran seemed to grasp it somewhat. I think I understand the law of causality a little now. As he spoke, he calmly launched a small flame toward the violently boiling cup of water. If I wanted to kill you, then instead of wasting mana, just wishing for your death, I need to create a cause that leads to death. For example, creating and firing a flame, right? Because creating fire and launching it feels more natural than directly burning someone alive. Hearing that, Kian's eyes lit up as though he had discovered a priceless treasure. Exactly. You could have become a scholar instead of a mage. Tehran withdrew his magic and rubbed his chin while muttering, but I can control ordinary animals however I want. So why do magical beasts require all those conditions? Kian casually shrugged and explained, that's because of the amount of mana they possess. After that, the two continued discussing things for a very long time inside the wooden cabin. Much later, sweat finally formed on Tehran's forehead as he quietly sighed in amazement. Magic really isn't easy at all. Immediately, Kian's stern voice echoed out. An outstanding mage doesn't just know how to use mana. They also understand the principles and circumstances behind it. He raised his head to look at him before asking, now that I think about it, does the Zahar bloodline have some kind of special magic too? Kian paused briefly before answering honestly. They're exceptionally skilled at hiding and tracking. After that, he suggested, let's try it once. Hearing that, Tehran quickly stood up from his chair. All right. He then tightly shut his eyes and silently chanted in his mind, I don't want anyone to see me. I wish there wouldn't be any sound or scent for anyone to detect. Immediately, part of his body slowly transformed into white smoke. Unable to see Kian's shocked expression, Tehran hesitantly asked, did it work? At that moment, Kian could no longer see his figure at all, only a faint ripple blending into the air. Several seconds later, Kian finally snapped back to reality and answered, you did it. I can't see you anymore. At that point, he couldn't help but swallow nervously, because right then, the space before him had become completely empty. Even the ripple had vanished. But in the next moment, Tehran slowly reappeared in his original position. Kian looked at him while speaking, his tone unable to hide his astonishment. It's been a very long time since I last witnessed this ability, but it's still terrifying. During the war, the Knights of the Arabion family feared this power the most. Hearing that, Turan sank into thought and remarked, "This ability seems absurdly overpowered to the point of being unfair, doesn't it?" However, Kian didn't completely agree. But remember, it's not invincible. Without continuing the topic, he quickly turned around and walked away. Now then, I'll teach you a few methods for training your magic. Kian's actions only made Turan even more confused. Is he really teaching this much to a mage from an enemy family? Yet Kian merely spoke gently. "You saved my life and even healed me. And haven't I already said this before?" Kian lowered his gaze slightly and placed a hand over his chest, his voice filled with certainty. "I trust your character." Sometime later, after hearing the news, the village chief's face twisted in frustration as he shouted loudly, "What? You're planning to sell the sheep and leave?" He looked at Turan, who already had his belongings packed and ready to depart, and angrily scolded him. "Then who's going to herd the sheep from now on? How can you decide something like that on your own without even discussing it with us?" Hearing that, he became annoyed and closed his eyes before retorting, "Find yourselves a new shepherd. What I do with my own property has nothing to do with any of it." His repeated threats made the villagers shrink back in fear. "Still, I hope you'll buy the flock at a fair price. Otherwise, I'll let them all loose and leave by myself. You can try catching them yourselves, but I bet it'll be a real hassle." Hearing that, one of the villagers nervously called out, "Village chief." At that moment, the village chief gritted his teeth and silently calculated in his mind, "This bastard absolutely does what he says. Provoking him won't gain us anything." In the end, the village chief was forced to compromise and handed Turan a pouch of money. "Fine, I get it. Stay or leave. Do whatever you want." After that, he left the village together with Kian. Turan suddenly remembered something and frowned slightly as he spoke. "Now that I think about it, the people in the village still owe you compensation money after everything that happened. Should I go collect it?" Kian simply smiled lightly, as though he didn't care. "I never intended to take it anyway. Besides, you were the one who captured the magical beast, right?" Hearing that, he stopped worrying about it. "All right then now." Turan paused briefly before looking at the two diverging roads ahead of them and continued, "I guess this is where we part ways." Before leaving, Kian glanced at him with visible regret. "I'm sorry for turning down your offer to travel together. I'm more comfortable wandering alone." Turan curled his lips into an easygoing smile and replied, "It's nothing. Thank you for everything." He closed his eyes and softly bid farewell. "Take care, Turan." He smiled brightly in return and promised, "Yeah, I hope the next time we meet, we'll both be smiling." And so, the boy stood there watching Kian's figure gradually disappear into the distance for a very long time. It wasn't until much later that he realized why he never wanted the man to speak to him so formally. Although he had never lacked love from his mother, deep down, the boy had always longed for the presence of a father figure. Someone who could become the ideal image of the strong man he himself wanted to grow into someday. As time passed, someone's messy footprints stretched across the sand. Everywhere around him lay a barren and desolate wasteland, with only the sound of wind whistling through gigantic rock formations. In the distance, a hooded figure slowly approached. That person was none other than Turan. Suddenly, his eyes widened as if he had discovered something. Not far from Turan, a group of people was slowly heading toward him. Are they merchants traveling from village to village? Turan secretly rejoiced inside. Great. Very quickly, he walked alone to stand directly in front of them. Let's go ask them for directions. Seeing that, the leader immediately questioned him. Who the hell are you to block our path? Turan immediately explained honestly and asked, I'm traveling alone. Could you tell me the way to the nearest city? Hearing that, the group answered, if you follow the road we just came from, you'll find a city called Muriai. Their attitude left him slightly confused, but he still calmly replied, I understand. As he spoke, Turan slowly walked past them. Thank you very much for showing me the way. However, someone suddenly stepped forward and blocked his path. Hold it. The man curled his lips into a vicious grin and questioned him. You got the information you wanted, and now you're just going to leave? Hearing that, Turan was completely stunned. What? However, he quickly regained his composure, and killing intent slowly flashed through his eyes. So what exactly do you want? The man still remained oblivious, as he continued demanding, "If someone helps you out, you should know how to return the favor a little." Before he could even finish speaking, the people around him simultaneously drew their blades and surrounded Tehran. "First, put down that bulging bag you're carrying." Tehran glanced around once before immediately understanding the situation. "Highway robbers." The man who had blocked him earlier arrogantly replied. "And what if we are?" The leader rested his long sword on his shoulder and sneered disdainfully. "Call it stupidity if you want, but this is abandoned land. Even if someone dies out here, nobody would find it strange, right?" He then pointed the tip of his sword toward Tehran's throat and threatened him. "Drop your bag and cloak while we're still being nice to you. Killing you and stripping your corpse afterward would just make a bloody mess and waste extra effort." Yet contrary to his expectations, Tehran merely spoke calmly and indifferently. "I see. So highway robbers like you can even kill people without hesitation, huh?" At that moment, memories of Kian's teachings quickly resurfaced in his mind, especially the moment he understood the third factor, the law of causality, along with everything else Kian had taught him after. Tehran curled the corner of his lips slightly, his gaze toward the bandits, now looking as though they were nothing more than moving sandbags. "I guess I'll use you all as practice targets." His eyes suddenly froze in place, slightly confused by the sound of laughter. The leader of the group looked at him mockingly. "This lunatic's talking like he's actually a mage." One of the lackeys immediately chimed in excitedly. "Exactly, boss." His pale fingers lightly flicked through the air. Tehran swung his arm widely behind him, creating a violent gust of wind that threw all of them into chaos. He removed his hood, revealing his razor-sharp eyes. So, instead of simply creating wind from the atmosphere, shaping it with your hands, and amplifying it consumes far less mana. Tehran still remained deep in thought. "I had no idea it was possible to create such a powerful gust of wind with so little mana." Meanwhile, the others were starting to crawl back up. "What the hell is happening?" Calmly, he opened the lid of a water flask. The droplets of water suddenly transformed into sharp spikes. Under his control, all of them aimed in the same direction. One of the bandits immediately went pale with terror. The projectiles pierced straight into his body, sending him flying backward. Tehran spread open his palm as he prepared for another attack. This spell would probably be much more useful in places with lots of water around. Honestly, throwing stones by hand still felt faster and stronger than this. The bandit leader fearfully begged in panic. "We didn't know you were such a powerful mage, sir. Please have mercy and forgive us this once." While he spoke to distract Tehran's attention, the others behind him lunged forward. "We'll hand over anything you want. So please, spare our lives." One of Tehran's legs slowly lifted to just the right height. The moment he slammed his foot down, a surge of sand erupted behind him and attacked all the bandits at once. Witnessing that, the bandit leader's face turned deathly pale. "Impossible." Tehran looked down silently with a frightening expression. "They're all dead already?" Only then did his voice slowly ring out. "Let me ask you something." The man crouched there submissively and answered politely. "Yes, great mage, sir. I'll answer anything you wish to ask." Tehran stared directly at him and bluntly asked, "Why would you attack me without any sort of plan? Even if I looked like a lone traveler, I still could have been a mage like I am right now." The bandit leader's voice became hesitant. "Because you bowed your head." The moment he heard that, Tehran's pupils widened. "What?" The man kept his head lowered while sweating nervously. "Even when we spoke rudely to you, you still bowed and greeted us politely. So we assumed you were just some weak and ordinary nobody." Tehran's face remained completely cold and expressionless. "Thank a lot. That taught me an incredibly useful lesson." Hearing that, the bandit leader looked up hopefully. "Then you'll really keep your word and spare me?" But what he never expected was a droplet of water transforming above his head. The scene shifted to a moment when Kian was calmly talking. "Tehran, from now on you're going to meet many kind of people out there. And there's one thing I absolutely need to warn you about." Tehran held the backpack he had prepared in his arms and listened attentively. Kian continued, "Never show any mercy to scum like highway robbers. They're people who never hesitate to hurt others for money." A sharp sword rested silently on the table. "The reason I'm warning you this seriously is because..." At that very moment, he answered with complete seriousness, "I think I already understand why." Tehran now stood before the motionless corpse of the bandit leader. because the life you spare out of weak compassion might one day come back and directly harm 10 innocent people around you. His expression remained calm as he muttered to himself, I've lingered around here long enough already. Tehran carefully walked across the sand, following the wagon tracks. Along the road where merchants and brigands had dragged their wagons through, the heavy wheel marks cut clearly across the sandy ground. Alone, he continued walking along those tracks. The thought seemed burned deeply into Tehran's mind. His lips pressed tightly together as he kept moving forward without looking back. I killed people. The terrified expression on the bandit leader's face suddenly resurfaced in his mind. He felt guilty, but he truly couldn't just let them walk away, because Kian's warning once again replayed vividly in his head. He also remembered the moment those bandits tried to ambush him from behind. People who could so casually decide to rob and murder for their own gain would absolutely target other innocent people again whenever they want. Suddenly, his footsteps stopped at the edge of something. The wagon tracks in the desert gradually faded as patches of grass began covering them. Tehran's chaotic heart slowly calmed down again as he remembered Kian's teachings from before. He stopped there for a moment, gazing up at the blue sky, before continuing to step forward into an entirely new and unfamiliar world. His eyes constantly wandered around as he murmured in amazement. He had arrived at a place that looked incredibly grand and bustling. So this is it, the small city of Mare. Along the road, a mother was holding her daughter's hand. With a backpack slung over his shoulders, Tehran slowly entered the city with curiosity. This is the first time in my life I've ever seen so many people gathered together like this. A towering and sturdy building stood proudly in this place. Even the architectural style looked completely different from the small village he had once lived in. Tehran slowly walked through the town, silently observing everything around him. Now this truly felt like a real city. He stopped in front of a fruit stand. Excuse me. The shopkeeper immediately greeted him warmly. Oh, hello there. The shopkeeper directly asked what he needed. What would you like to buy? Tehran politely raised one arm. Actually, I'm not here to buy anything. Once again, Kian's teachings resurfaced in his mind. Once you arrive in a city and need a place to stay, just look for a nearby inn. Whether it's a village or a city, there's almost always an inn somewhere. But in reality, the shopkeeper immediately became annoyed and waved him away. If you're not buying fruit, then get lost. Tehran suddenly fell silent, unable to understand the man's attitude. Why did he suddenly become so rude? Is there some kind of unspoken rule in cities like this where you have to buy fruit before you're allowed to ask questions? Thinking that, Tehran pointed toward a red-colored fruit. How much does this cost? The shopkeeper answered bluntly, 2 ducats. Tehran calmly counted a few coins in his palm. 2 ducats. The shopkeeper still sounded rude. You really do look like an outsider. Guess you don't know what those are, huh? You can pay with another kind of coin if you want. Tehran moved to place a coin into the shopkeeper's hand. Where can I find an inn? The shopkeeper casually gave him directions. Go straight down the road behind that cloak shop over there and turn left. You'll see a building with a blue roof and a wooden sign hanging outside with 3 words written on it. That's the biggest inn in the whole city. A beautiful young woman appeared inside the inn. Welcome to our inn. The inn employee, Lena. The moment she saw Tehran, she immediately complimented him in surprise. You're quite the handsome guest. He smiled in relief. How much for one night? Lena cheerfully quoted the price while greeting him. 16 ducats. As soon as he heard that, he answered, I'll take it. Tehran handed a small money pouch toward her. More importantly, there's something I really want to ask right now. Lena gently welcomed the question. What is it you'd like to ask? Without beating around the bush, Tehran directly voiced his curiosity. Are there any monsters around here with bounties on them? Lena paused slightly after hearing that. Monsters? His eyes remained determined and serious as he waited for an answer. I need to start hunting monsters and find a way to absorb as much mana from them as possible. And he also said monster hunting could earn money too. Unable to wait any longer, Tehran innocently asked, Why aren't you answering me? Lena burst out laughing as she tilted her head to the side. Sir, she raised one arm to the left. Nothing in this world is completely free, you know. Over there in the corner of the inn are sealed boxes from the city hall, right? Tehran sat down at a table while holding up a cup of water. What's that? Lena looked at him in surprise. You don't know about City Hall? You really are a country bumpkin. Tehran sat there silently, listening carefully as she explained. City Hall is where they handle all sorts of official business. The officials working there all personally hired by the lord of this city. Lena kept her eyes fixed on him as he sat there. It's probably closed already since the sun's gone down. If you want to look for monster hunting bounties, you should go to City Hall tomorrow. Standing across from him with one hand on her hip, Lena asked, "So you're a monster hunter too?" Sitting properly at the table, Tehran calmly asked back, "What's a monster hunter?" People say those with strong enough bodies can withstand the immense energy. Rumor has it that if an ordinary person manages to kill a monster, they'll definitely become a mage. You want to become a mage quickly too, right? Lena remained focused on the conversation. Of course, but anyone who actually believes that superstition is a complete idiot. Suddenly, a hand landed on Tehran's shoulder from behind. Superstition. Another man with blonde hair appeared behind him. It's true that someone can become a mage by killing monsters. I've seen it with my own eyes. And his identity was Monster Hunter Mage. Seeing him appear, Lena immediately asked with concern, "Mage, you're still alive?" Mage looked completely casual. "Already told you. I'm not dying until I become the first mage myself." Tehran raised an arm to signal toward him. Mage pulled his hand back and laughed loudly. "Oh, my apologies." Taking the opportunity, Tehran seriously asked for more information. "More importantly, could I hear more about what you just said?" Mage looked directly at him and replied about how someone could become a powerful mage through hunting monsters. Lena sat down at the table, resting her chin in boredom while listening to their conversation. Mages become stronger whenever they hunt monsters. Following the same principle, if an ordinary person manages to kill a monster, they might become a mage themselves. Mage looked toward the four men standing behind him. "All five of us are hunting monsters so we could become mages." One of them crossed his arms confidently. "Yeah, exactly." Tehran looked at them with both surprise and seriousness. "So, if that's true, does that mean one of you here is already a mage?" They immediately replied, "No way. In this city, there's only the Lord's mage and 3 others serving under him." While speaking casually, Mage laughed naturally. "But didn't you say you've hunted monsters before? With gear like yours, that stuff looks pretty expensive. Don't you even have a weapon?" Tehran pulled out an object in front of them. "Ido." The moment Mage saw it, he recognized it immediately. "A slingshot, huh? Just looking at the wear on it tells me you've definitely used it a lot." Tehran looked extremely serious during the tense conversation. "Yeah, that's true. It's perfect for launching something about the size of an egg really fast." Mage stroked his chin while carefully examining the slingshot. "With a weapon like that, you could easily hunt monsters like rabbits or foxes." Tehran looked slightly startled as he turned toward him. "Actually, we were just saying we needed another ranged attacker. Interested in hunting together with our group?" At that moment, Tehran casually answered just to end the conversation. "No," but later that night, while lying stretched out on the bed, he realized there really wasn't any proper reason for him to go hunting with them anyway. His face looked exhausted and worn out. Today was seriously a chaotic day. The backpack he carried was neatly placed beside the bed. "Even now, I still can't fully believe I actually left that village for good." Tehran raised his palm into the air and played around with a little bit of mana. "What's going to happen from now on?" Suddenly, his ears twitched after catching the sound of something. Instinctively, Tehran sat upright and stared toward the door. "Who's there?" He recalled walking along the barren road with Kian. Even while staying at an inn like this, I still shouldn't lower my guard? Kian walked beside him with one hand tucked into his pocket and firmly answered, "That's right." Kian looked toward him with a gentle smile on his face. "A city doesn't automatically guarantee safety." Hearing that, he replied, "Understood." Kian continued carefully warning Tehran, "Then never let your guard down." He obediently followed the advice. "Got it." Tehran slowly approached the door, while one hand was already prepared with mana. The door quietly opened just enough for him to peek through. His expression didn't change at all. Lena appeared outside the door with a smile. "Lena," she softly spoke, "are you asleep yet?" And she explained her purpose a little more. "I thought the room seemed cold, so I wanted to warm it up for you." Hearing that, Tehran looked slightly surprised. "What?" Lena gave him a flirtatious look while playing with the ribbon near her chest. "What exactly do you mean by that?" She still stood shyly in front of the room. "Exactly what it sounds like." Tehran stood there with his legs apart, still not understanding what it sounds like meant. Lena began advancing closer toward him. "For a little money, I'll do anything you want." Tehran remained clear-headed and firm. What if I don't want anything? She deliberately pressed closer with her seductive figure while teasing him. Don't lie. I could tell just by looking at your face. Unexpectedly, Tehran tightly closed his eyes, looking merciful like the face of Buddha himself. Lena was left speechless in shock, only able to stand there staring with wide eyes. Kian suddenly appeared in his mind with an incredibly stern and furious expression. Absolutely not. Tehran stood there staring at his expression in confusion. Always be careful around waitresses and prostitutes, because most of them carry sexually transmitted diseases. He listened seriously to Kian's warning. Our bodies may resist disease better, so we'll probably be fine, but if you're careless and later sleep with another woman, you could spread the disease to her. Don't let lust control you and make you do something you'll regret later. Lena's face had turned red with anger as she stomped downstairs in frustration. Cities really aren't easy either, huh? From a fruit seller earlier to Lena herself. Tehran returned to lying sideways on the bed. Even getting a tiny bit of information or casual conversation costs money here. Cities really are cold places. His eyes shifted toward the direction where the sound came from. Hey, how about something I want to ask? One of me Dan's followers walking behind him asked curiously, why'd you want that guy to come with us earlier? Honestly, he doesn't look useful at all. Tehran gave a faint smile, though his expression looked strangely sad. Yeah, that's true. His tone's rough too. He looks like the perfect bait for attracting monsters. But suddenly his eyes widened when he heard me Dan's voice. Looking at him reminds me of my own youth. Seeing him go hunting with a weapon like that really makes me worry. Me Dan walked away with a kind smile. Well, with you by his side, maybe he'll manage to stay alive a little longer. Beast hunter, Midan. His subordinates could only accept it. Their boss was just too kind-hearted. Because of that, Tehran let a satisfied smile creep onto his lips. Yeah, well, Tehran folded his arms behind his head and looked up at the ceiling. This city isn't as cold-hearted as I thought. The scene shifts to the next day as sunlight shines down on the city hall. A man at the reception desk was flipping through a folder. Hello? What can I do for you? Tehran walked over politely and inquired. Are you a civil servant here? The receptionist immediately replied. Well, what do I look like to you? He didn't beat around the bush and got straight to the point. I'm here to hunt beasts. The receptionist tilted his head in surprise. Beasts. Kian's gentle voice echoed in his mind once again. Life won't be kind to you. At that time, he had asked, why's that? He was sitting on a rocky outcrop, stroking the wool of some sheep. Because conversely, there's no reason for it to be kind to you. If you want others to treat you well, it's quite simple. The man at the reception desk handed Tehran a piece of paper. As soon as he took it, he was cautioned, don't take this outside. Give it back when you're done looking. Tehran looked at the ugly drawing of a black crow on the paper. Is this supposed to be a monster? The man snapped back. What? Did you think it was a cat? The receptionist continued flipping through other documents in his hand. It's unlikely, but if you manage to kill a monster, bring it into the city. If a mage doesn't reclaim the mana, it'll turn into an undead. He kept issuing careful reminders. If you kill a monster and just leave it there, you'll be heavily fined under city law, most likely facing execution. Tehran listened intently while studying the paper. I understand. The image of ferocious monsters with deformed bodies flashed through his mind. I know what happens if a monster turns into an undead. I can't repeat the old mistakes. Tehran intentionally posed a question. Don't the knights go monster hunting? The man didn't even look up as he kept writing. You think those guys are just sitting around with nothing to do? He pushed the info sheet about the crow across the desk. A knight's role is to maintain security within the city. Tehran wanted to double-check. So, I have to hunt monsters outside the city? After getting his answer, Tehran turned to leave. That's a job for drifters like you. When a receptionist looked up while using a sponge, he realized he's gone. There's about to be another corpse outside the city walls. A milky white eye with no pupil was hidden within the jet black feathers. A black crow was gasping its last breath, having just taken a deep hit to the chest. The people at the city hall all turned pale the moment they saw it. No way. This is insane. The receptionist and two others stared intently at the crow that had been brought in. You brought it back this fast? Tehran stood quietly by as the man asked. Did you catch this by yourself? He didn't show much emotion and simply replied softly. Yes. Tehran immediately asked for what he wanted. Where do I collect the reward? A round, chubby-looking guy rushed toward the desk. We got to pay him, of course. They handed him a small pouch of money. That must have been hard work. Go get some rest. He took it and replied, "Thank you, sir." After he left, the three of them stood around the crow, discussing it. Incredible, the wings are still intact. Is it really possible to bring a crow back in this condition? The receptionist's gaze shifted, as if something had caught his attention. He saw that Turan was still there. "Oh, you haven't left yet?" Turan nonchalantly asked further. "Are there any other monsters worth hunting?" The man broke into a sweat from the surprise. What? He stood there in the sunlight, completely unscathed and relaxed. Could he really keep hunting? A banquet table full of delicacies was laid out. "This is the most expensive item on our menu, sir." Lena breathed a sigh of relief after setting down a pile of delicious dishes. "I can't believe you hunted 30 monsters in just 3 days." Turan felt it was perfectly normal. It was nothing special. Turan calmly enjoyed the meal. "You must have made a lot of money." Turan opened his eyes and stated seriously, "It's not just about the money." As Turan defeated the small monsters, he absorbed all their mana. His true goal was the mana from the monsters. Thanks to that, he had definitely become much stronger. Turan stared pensively at his palm. His mana had increased several times over compared to when he met Kian. His pupils were steady as he stared, but he felt he was nearing a limit. It would likely be difficult to get any stronger just by relying on the mana of weak monsters. Turan suddenly spoke up. "By the way," Lena startled and replied immediately, "Yes, sir." He asked out of the blue with a blank expression, "Did someone steal a bite of this?" Lena, standing right there, was certain. "You ate it all by yourself." She tilted her head and gave him a surprise compliment. "You're so thin, yet you sure can eat." The inn's cook wiped away sweat with a towel. "It's been a long time since I prepared a meal like this. I'm just glad you enjoyed it." Turan stood up from his chair and nodded in praise of the food. It was truly delicious. The cook happily promised, "I'll make it even better next time." Suddenly, a hand reached out and grabbed the hood of his cloak. Another arrogant guy appeared from behind. "Eating all this good stuff by yourself?" At first, Turan stayed silent without looking back. "Hey, Skinny, you've been making some money lately, haven't you?" Before the guy could even finish his sentence, he took a direct hit to the face, a little something to share with his gang. He staggered and stumbled backward. "You little." One of his cronies outside saw this and cursed. "You bastard." Turan tilted his head slightly. "I just wanted to share a little." The arrogant thug got angry and swung a wild punch. "Don't you get cocky with me." Turan just stood his ground and blocked the punch with his elbow. As that guy fell, another one from behind rushed in swinging a chair. He easily swatted the chair aside with his bare hands. The guy's eyes rolled up just in time to see Turan's hand in position for a forehead flick. The blow sent the man flipping backward through the air. Lena, standing on the sidelines, was gritting her teeth. "Stop." She squeezed her eyes shut in anger and screamed, "Don't you dare fight in my shop." Midan appeared and gave a polite, deep bow. "I'm sorry. I am truly, sincerely sorry." Turan stood dead silent at the sight of his bow. "I've punished both of them. I'll never let this happen again." Still bowing, he explained, "We've been going through some hard times lately, which is why things got out of hand. They probably just saw how well you're doing and got jealous." Then Midan signaled, "Apologize now." Both thugs bowed out of fear. "We're sorry." Turan looked at him seriously and asked, "Are things that hard for you guys?" Midan looked away slightly, avoiding eye contact. "Money is a bit tight." He started explaining the situation, though his fist remained still at his side. "We've got about 3 days left before we can't pay for our room, but that's our problem." Turan held out a pouch of money directly in front of him. "Take this." Midan didn't understand and looked up at him in surprise. "What's this for?" Turan explained nonchalantly. "It's a thank you for your kindness the other day, when you were worried and invited me to join you." Midan was genuinely shocked to hear those words. "Kid, how did you know?" Turan cut him off with a serious face. "It's not for free." Turan wanted something in exchange. "Share some information with me." Midan laughed and pointed at his chest. "Confidence. I've got plenty of confidence when it comes to information. I'll tell you everything I know." The entire city then returned to its usual peace. Initially, Turan was standing alone on a high vantage point. "This will probably be my last hunt in this city." He observed his surroundings and thought, "Midan gave me info on the next city. It's almost time to head out." In that inn, the two of them had sat opposite each other and talked for a long time. There was more useful information than I expected. And no matter how many times I look back, Midan is truly a good person. In his memory, Midan remained a cheerful man. He wasn't as mature as Kian, but in return, He was a purer and kinder soul. But suddenly, his eyes filled with shock. His sharp nose was twitching, picking up a strange scent in the air. This smell is... Turan suddenly leapt deep into the forest. I hope my intuition is wrong. His pale hand pressed against a tree trunk. Turan came to a halt in a deserted part of the forest. Before his eyes lay a murdered body slumped at the base of a tree. This person is definitely... He recognized the man gasping for breath, covered in blood. Isn't this me, Dan's companion? His lips curled into a smile when he saw the man. The man's eyes turned gray. A few small coins lay near his motionless hand. Turan knelt beside him, growing curious. What exactly happened here? Midan. He could only fall silent as he glanced over and saw another person slumped against a nearby tree. The person there looked to be at death's door, but his mouth was still murmuring. Rabbit. Two long front teeth appeared in the darkness. A rabbit. Turan looked over and saw a rabbit monster gnawing on a corpse. It had white fur, and its mouth was sticky with fresh blood. Turan watched it carefully and slowly stood up. Its eyes were blood red, and it suddenly lunged forward, biting a chunk out of a tree. Turan's teeth clenched in surprise. It's fast. The rabbit monster's ears stood up sharp. I almost got hit. Turan took out his slingshot and started spinning it continuously. He focused with wide, intense eyes. Turan swung the slingshot hard, sending several small stones flying at incredible speed toward the rabbit. It was extremely agile and managed to dodge them all. Turan watched its movements and became seriously guarded. This little guy is used to defending against projectiles. One of its feet, with 3 sharp claws, was tensing up. It lunged toward where he was standing with incredible speed. Its blood-red pupils were locked onto a single target. It was as if it vanished into thin air. Nothing was left in that spot. The rabbit monster landed after missing its target. Turan took the opportunity from behind, having already prepared a small, sharp knife. A single thrust directly under its neck made it howl in pain. Turan quickly retreated, backing away. His body moved back toward a tree, but he seemed to be fading away. The rabbit monster spun around and immediately attacked that tree. Its face looked ferocious as it repeatedly slashed with its claws. Its eyes glowed a fierce red, slashing everywhere it jumped. White smoke suddenly rose from within the forest. The rabbit monster stood amidst the fallen trees and screamed at the sky. Blood dripped from its body onto the ground bit by bit. Its ears drooped, and its tongue lolled out past its teeth. His black boots reappeared on the ground. Turan returned when he saw the rabbit monster's corpse lying flat on the earth. As was his habit, he reached his palm out toward it. His face was cold as he absorbed all the mana from the rabbit monster's body. A blue light flickered in his eyes. The amount of mana I absorbed is significantly more than that first leper monster. His gaze softened back to normal. No way. The man leaning against the tree trunk spoke in a raspy whisper. Are you a mage? Turan didn't hide it and replied immediately. Yeah, I am. The man was still curious. Why on earth would you reveal your identity? Turan didn't hide it and replied immediately. Yeah, I am. The man was still curious. Why on earth would you reveal your identity? Even me, Dan, was lying in a pool of blood with soulless eyes. Big brother. In his memory, Turan still remembered me, Dan's smiling face. There's a big city nearby called Orem. They have a place there called the library. At that time, Turan was quite surprised by the mention of a library. He had stated, I heard they have thousands of books there. Me, Dan had said something that caught him off guard. You start getting interested the moment you hear about books, don't you? He asked seriously. Was it that obvious? Me, Dan picked up the cup on the table with a gentle smile. But I heard not just anyone can enter that library. Taking the chance, Turan asked, So, what do I have to do to get in? Me, Dan didn't hesitate to give him the info. Apparently, only mages are allowed inside. Hearing that, Turan rubbed his chin thoughtfully. I see. Even in that forest, his mind was still on that conversation. I've decided. What have you decided? Now Turan stood before 3 handmade graves. I'm going to that city of Orem you mentioned. His face looked a bit sad and his eyes were glistening. Me, Dan. Then he could only leave with one last word. I hope you find happiness in that place. The scene shifts to Turan standing quietly in a long line. His face was a bit smudged, having just arrived at the new city. I was amazed just seeing the small city of Murray. Thinking back on it now, it's embarrassing. This was a noble and bustling city far beyond that. The great city of Orem. He followed the crowd, stepping bit by bit through the city gates. I didn't expect so many people to want to enter the city. His eyes caught some soldiers guarding the gate. Are they filtering out wanted criminals? Turan slowly approached as his turn came. As expected of a major city, the organizational system is much more professional. Suddenly, a voice interrupted his thoughts. Halt. Turan didn't understand and looked around blankly. Is something wrong? The gate guard, with an arrogant look on his face, pointed directly at him. You're not allowed in. Turan listened while reaching out to touch his own clothes. I've never seen anyone with such filthy clothes in my life. You'd better go over there and dust yourself off before coming in. Inside the city, there was a skyscraper surrounded by various types of trees. A tiny Turan stood at the base, looking up in awe. This is the library me Dan talked about. He couldn't stop marveling in his head. It's truly majestic. It must have been built with magic. Turan carefully approached the gate to ask, Excuse me, I have a question. The guard at the library gate replied sternly, Yes. He stepped closer and made his request. I'd like to enter. Kenya stated the requirement. This library is for mages only. Turan immediately asserted himself. I am a mage. The soldier didn't believe him and stepped forward to investigate. What? He furrowed his brows and scolded him. You dare to pose as a mage? Are you trying to get killed? We really get all kinds of crazies here. Kenya deliberately waved his hand as if to shoo Turan away. A guy like you being a mage is just ridiculous. Before his hand could even touch Turan, it suddenly turned a glowing red. The memory of Kian returned once more. Mages can recognize each other. They can sense each other's mana and know if the other person is stronger. His gaze suddenly became very sharp. Just by sensing through the man's palm, his eyes glared a blood red. The man was affected, struggling to keep one eye open as the pressure knocked him backward onto the ground. Are you all right, sir? I'm Phoenix. Kenya, with his head still touching the ground, stared in shock. This isn't just an ordinary mage. This person is at least of noble rank or higher. Then he stood up and gave a long yawn. I am Kenya, a knight of the Bantus family. May I ask which family you hail from? Turan remained calm, not wanting to answer. Is it mandatory to say so to get in? He replied respectfully, No, sir. Kenya lowered his head, his eyes darkening. However, to use the library, you need permission from Lord Bantus. Turan was still unclear. You mean? Kenya immediately proceeded with the arrangements. I will contact the Bantus family right away. Meanwhile, as Turan was bathing, all right, he opened one eye wearily. I thought this would be simpler. A maid with blonde hair also appeared there. His long arms were being carefully wiped. Turan sat in the bathtub while the maids wiped him down. How did things end up like this? He suddenly turned and ordered them. Stop. They all jumped in surprise. Yes, sir. Turan wanted some privacy and intentionally tried to get them to leave. Is there a problem if I bathe by myself? The maids replied timidly. If we don't serve such a distinguished guest properly, we will be punished. In this massive city, he just had to accept it. Suit yourselves. They complied. Thank you, sir. A maid with cool brown hair was marveling at something. Truly wonderful. A voice rang out, making her startle and quickly cover her mouth. What is it? Turan was carefully fixing his hair in the back while wearing his new suit. Is there something on my face? The maid with cool brown hair explained. I believe I was simply overwhelmed by your grace's beauty. The other maids nearby also bowed. Please forgive us. Turan, on the other hand, was kind and gentle. There's nothing to apologize for. They spoke up immediately. Please don't be so humble with us, sir. His gaze suddenly shifted toward a sound. What was that? From another direction, a person with pink hair was entering the room. Azella appeared with a sharp gaze and a mysterious look on her face. Is this the guest who arrived, looking like a beggar? She smirked mockingly. After a bath and a change of clothes, you look just like a prince. Turan took note of her words. Lady, that beggar comment was a bit much. He introduced himself. I am Turan. She did the same. I am Azella. She wanted to know more about his identity. What is your family name? Turan carefully and tactfully declined. I have reasons I cannot disclose. Azella lightly stroked her chin. Is that so? That's a shame. A mysterious smile suddenly bloomed on her face. This guy want to hide his identity? Let's poke and prod a little. No sooner said than done. She released a burst of mana that radiated around her body. Her face looked excited as she aimed it at Turan. Show me. What is your mana like? Turan's eyes widened as an invisible pressure bore down from all sides. so heavy that he immediately realized this was no joke, but a genuine challenge. His eyes immediately shifted to a brilliant blue. His own mana exploded outward, filling the space to counter her. The air became thick and heavy, nearly suffocating. Azella's bodyguard immediately rushed forward to shield the maids behind them. As the two forces collided violently, the entire room shook as if it were about to crack open. Then Tehran let out a long breath, and the pressure vanished the moment Azella lowered her hands, which were visibly trembling. Oh my! Outwardly, she remained composed, but her gaze was deep as she looked at him and spoke. Hey, guest, do you want to marry me? Time seemed to stand still. Tehran could only stand there frozen, eyes wide, his mind completely blank. Azella suddenly burst into laughter. What's with that reaction? I was just kidding. She leaned over with a playful smile and continued. But you should really think about it seriously. The seat beside me is currently vacant. Having said that, she turned and left, leaving the room suddenly and strangely quiet. Tehran remained where he was, his eyes briefly glancing down at his hands. Only now did he realize that his own hands were shaking in waves. He thought to himself, she is at least on par with me. Is this level of power common around here? This great city suddenly became much more dangerous in his eyes. A short while later, in the city lord's office, a man sitting on a high chair observed him calmly and spoke. Welcome, young noble. I assume you already know my name? Rug Bantis, the Lord of Orem. Tehran replied briefly. I am Tehran. The Lord blinked, his voice shifting slightly. Tehran, how straightforward. So, you want to enter the library, correct? A lot of people come here because of strange rumors. So let me be clear up front. Inside, you won't find ancient forbidden magic, secret methods to boost mana, hidden treasures, or any shortcuts. Tehran replied without hesitation. I don't need those things, so you don't have to worry. After a moment of silence, the Lord nodded. If you still want to enter, I won't stop you. After all, there is nothing inside related to my family's secrets. He glanced outside and said, It's late now. Why don't you rest today and come back tomorrow? Tehran replied politely. I won't forget your kindness. The next day, the tower soared straight up as if trying to pierce the sky. The guards respectfully stepped aside and announced, Access card confirmed. Welcome to the Horizon Library. The massive doors swung open, light flooded in, and for the first time since arriving in Orem, Tehran's composure shattered. His eyes widened in amazement at a sight that far exceeded his imagination. The interior space felt detached from reality, with spiral staircases ascending endlessly, rising so high they nearly vanished into the clouds. Tehran stood in silence for a long time, thinking to himself, this isn't just a building, it's a monument to knowledge. Suddenly, a cute voice rang out. It's a pleasure to meet you, Tehran. He looked down to see a small girl, smiling brightly. I'm a librarian here. By the Lord's order, I'll explain the rules. They're actually quite simple. Tehran stared, secretly surprised. A child is the librarian? But the girl continued confidently. Rule number 1. If you damage a book, you must pay compensation. Second, books cannot be taken outside the library. And while you're using the library, I'll be keeping an eye on you. Tehran asked hesitantly. Fine, but could you stand a little further away while I'm reading? The girl just smiled brightly without answering. He carefully followed up. If you're the librarian here, you must have read every book in this place, right? The girl nodded excitedly. That's right. Finding what you need is my specialty. What kind of book are you looking for? Romantic love stories or history? Or since you're young, do you want to read something a bit more stimulating? There are some adult books over there. Tehran looked at her intently and replied immediately. I just want to learn more about the basic knowledge of this world. The girl set a stack of books on the table. Many books here are hundreds of years old and aren't quite what you're looking for. But this section should help you out a bit. Thanks a lot, kid. No problem. Tehran carefully picked up a book, his fingers tracing the cover. He thought to himself, this is the first time he's held knowledge instead of a weapon. No battlefield, no blood, just paper and ink. How extraordinary is that? The following days passed like a dream. Tehran established a daily routine, waking up, heading to the Horizon Library, and reading until the sun went down. The following days passed like a dream. Tehran established a daily routine, waking up, heading to the Horizon Library, and reading until the sun went down. From geography and races to mage rituals, manufacturing methods, ancient monsters, and ruins of the old empire. Piece by piece, the void of ignorance around him began to take shape, The world became clearer, sharper, and more real through every page. One day, the Lord summoned him and offered praise. I hear you've been making good use of the library. Turan replied briefly, yes. The Lord's voice dropped an octave. You understand that letting you use the library and treating you like a noble is quite a favor, don't you? Now is the time. I'd like to receive something in return. Turan replied immediately. Please, go ahead. The Lord spoke of a monster in the north attacking merchants. The 4 knights we sent were all eaten by it, and currently the family can only mobilize 2 noble rank fighters. If you join them to form a party of 3, it will be much safer. Turan kept a calm exterior, thinking, protecting others is what a mage should do. I agree. A doubt flickered in his mind. Mages usually don't get mixed up in these kinds of things. The Lord emphasized further. The northern road is a vital trade route. It's been blocked for 10 days now, so it must be cleared as soon as possible. Hearing this made Turan suddenly realize, 10 days ago? So it was even before I set foot here. Turns out that's the reason he let me into the library so easily. On the journey north, Azella walked between Turan and Marvin, with a formation of knights following behind. She clicked her tongue softly in admiration. My father certainly knows what he's doing, to the point of mobilizing even a guest to hunt monsters. She glanced sideways, half joking, half serious. Is it because we're not that trustworthy? Turan thought. Knowledge is never free. It's just wrapped up more beautifully. Azella turned to look at him. Oh, I didn't mean to imply anything about you. Guest, I'm just saying father is overdoing. Marvin burst out laughing. Calling the Lord overdoing it isn't exactly right, sis. Azella rolled her eyes. Drop it. Don't you start defending him. Marvin stepped up to Turan and gave a slight bow. Our first formal meeting, isn't it? I'm Marvin Voltas. Looking forward to working with you. Turan replied succinctly. Me too. As the group continued toward the spot where the magical beast appeared, Azella boredly kicked obstacles out of her way. I just want to get this over with quickly so I can go home and rest. Marvin slowly approached him and asked, Hey Turan, do you have any feelings for my sister? Turan was startled by the question. Huh? Nothing like that at all. Marvin smiled suggestively. Well, that's a relief. Up ahead, a knight called for a halt, pointing to a carriage destroyed by the monster. The group quickly moved to inspect the area. Is it that monster? Likely so. We've strictly prohibited travel to the north, so the victim must have been attacked while heading south from the northern direction. Turan observed everything pensively and carefully. A handprint left on the wooden structure gave him a clue. The monster we're looking for is very likely a monkey. Azella was surprised. A monkey? You have to look at the handprints here. It seems it attacked the merchant caravan and then headed back into the forest. I think if we follow the remaining tracks, we can hunt it down. Azella frowned. Tracking? I'm not very well versed in that kind of magic. How about you, Marvin? I'm not great at it either. Is there anyone among the knights? Turan stepped forward and interrupted. Let me give it a try. Azella smiled teasingly. Oh, could it be you belong to a lineage with that ability? It's just that I've used it so much it's become second nature. He carefully sniffed the discarded cloth and activated his tracking sense. Turan's eyes widened as a trail of blue energy appeared, stretching into the forest. Follow this way. They followed it to a lake. Turan remarked. The trail breaks off in this area. It must have used something, Azella asked in amazement. A beast actually knows how to hide itself to avoid being tracked. No, it's likely just acting on instinct. Suddenly, the scent became unusually pungent. He turned around and shouted to those behind him. A massive gorilla lunged out from the bushes. It let out a threatening roar before charging into attack. However, contrary to the knight's expectations, it didn't engage in close combat, but scooped up a handful of rubble and hurled it. The knights' faces turned pale with panic. Oh no, watch out. The powerful stone throw easily swept aside the knights in the front. Turan jumped to the side, dodging everything. But when he looked at Azella and Marvin, he froze because both were using the knights as meat shields for themselves. Azella tossed a soldier behind her like a broken shield. Thoughts from the past flashed through Turan's mind. Mother really wasn't wrong. Azella shouted a command. All of you attack. The knights still standing quickly charged, but the gorilla turned and fled instead of continuing the fight. Azella and Marvin gave chase immediately, but their speed clearly couldn't match it. Hurry, don't let it get away. Suddenly, from behind, a stone sliced through the air with a whistling sound, hurtling toward the monster. It passed precisely through the crowded line of people, exactly like a bullet fired from a sniper rifle. It pierced the gorilla's chest with ease, taking down the beast without him even breaking a sweat. Both turned back to look at him with faces mixed with astonishment and alarm. In that dusty area, there stood Turan, swinging his crude slingshot with absolute focus. He tilted his head slightly with a gentle smile, as if it were no trouble at all. The gorilla collapsed, gasping for breath in painful spurts. Azella immediately unleashed the finishing blow. "Take this." A fire snake quickly coiled around her arm. It lunged at the gorilla before her and engulfed everything in a violent blaze. The entire area exploded. A massive pillar of fire reached toward the sky with its terrifying heat. From a distance, Turan watched silently and realized that was the bloodline power of the fire guardian of the Voltas house. As the dust gradually settled, the knights breathed a sigh of relief. Azella stretched out, a smile half proud and half excited on her lips. When that massive rock came flying, my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. Marvin immediately smirked, his eyes twinkling with mockery. "Oh, so the haughty lady was scared enough to get goosebumps?" Azella snapped back, pointing right at her brother's face. "Shut your mouth. You were the one screaming like a girl." Marvin stammered in protest. "I was just surprised." While everyone gradually recovered and bandaged their wounds, Turan stood silently from afar observing the entire chaotic scene. Blood stained the ground. The groans of the injured and the acrid smell of magical fire still lingered in the air. He thought to himself, luckily no one died, but this situation really isn't right. Even though it was a surprise beast attack, this was a battle where serious casualties could have been avoided. Given that both Azella and Marvin have man-enhanced bodies, they should possess far superior endurance and speed compared to regular knights. Yet, at the most dangerous moment, they didn't hesitate to use those weaker than them as shields. That act was cold-hearted and completely opposite to the noble image he had once imagined. A feeling of unease crept into Turan's chest, but he only gave a slight shake of his head when Marvin noticed his gaze and asked, "Is something wrong?" Turan replied curtly, "Nothing." Azella clapped her hands together loudly, the sharp sound cutting through the air, her voice suddenly full of excitement. "Come on, stop moping. The most important thing now is absorbing the mana from this monster's corpse." The three of them stepped toward the smoking, massive corpse and reached out their hands simultaneously. Streams of pale blue light immediately radiated from the beast, carrying a flow of pure energy back into their bodies. Turan felt every wave of warm mana flood his meridians, exactly like what he had read in the books. Even with several people absorbing at once, the growth efficiency didn't drop. The theory was perfectly correct. Just a few minutes later, Azella groaned in frustration and pulled her hand back. "Damn it, I hit the limit again. This stupid growth limit." Marvin also sighed, shaking his head. "I'm full too." Azella clicked her tongue, glancing at Turan with a look of both admiration and envy. "Now I understand why Father insisted on him coming along. His magic skills are truly impressive. His mana capacity is on par with mine, yet he hasn't even touched the growth limit. He's a total monster." On the long road back, Marvin suddenly spoke up with a sincere tone. "Thinking back, if it weren't for you today, we definitely would have failed miserably. From tracking the trail and figuring out it washed itself to erase the scent, to that fatal slingshot shot that knocked it off balance. It's all thanks to you." Turan shook his head slightly, his voice humble. "It was just luck, nothing special. If there's any regret, it's that I reacted a beat too slow. I didn't expect the monster to have the ability to search for and detect enemies from afar." Marvin's eyes widened. "Searching ability?" "That's right," Turan explained slowly. "Based on what I've read, some monsters awaken special abilities based on prominent physical features. This one had unusually large hands and deformed, large eyes. No doubt those features allowed it to throw rocks with terrifying force and observe targets from a great distance in the dense forest." Marvin's jaw dropped as he looked at Turan like he was looking at a different kind of monster. "You analyzed all that in a split second?" Turan shrugged, his voice calm. "I just happened to read about it in the monster encyclopedia in the library." Marvin immediately made a face. "That library place for snobs? Nobody wants to go there. I once tried to check it out of curiosity, but the books were all incomprehensible. I didn't even get halfway through one before I left." Turan smiled slightly. Next time you two should ask the librarian. She'll find you books that are easier to understand. Azella blinked blankly. Librarian? Is there actually someone like that in that godforsaken library? The scene shifts to the moment Turan enters the Horizon Library after returning from the hunt. A clear, cheerful voice suddenly rang out. Welcome back, Turan. He immediately froze, a slight smile appearing on his lips. I've made a big mistake. In this city, no knight or commoner would dare call a noble by their name alone like that. They always use lord, guest, or sir. More importantly, the small girl standing before him didn't look like an ordinary librarian at all. Turan asked directly, his voice colder than intended. How do you know my name? The girl blinked in surprise. Oh, that. She sat on the table and giggled. Are you just now realizing it? I knew it. For your library permit, of course. Where else? Within the scope of this library, my gaze can reach every corner. Your name was right there on that thin piece of paper. Turan was silent for a moment, then asked further. So what should I call you? She shrugged, her tone playful. I don't have a real name. Call me whatever you like. Or maybe darling? That sounds pretty cute. She even blinked and cupped her cheeks, pretending to be bashful. Turan immediately cut her off. Fine, I'll just call you Kid Librarian then. Oomph. She pouted, acting offended. How cold. Oomph. You've been using me for days to run around and get books. Now that you know my identity, you're going to act all suddenly polite? Turan replied immediately. I wasn't using you, and don't get so close to me like that. It's uncomfortable. Turan tilted his head curiously. Are you a mage from the old empire, kid? She shook her head, her smile becoming mysterious. No, I'm not even human. I'm closer to a spirit. Then she explained slowly, her voice as gentle as a fairy tale. When a soul enters a living being, it becomes a living spirit. But when it enters something that is neither living nor dead, it's simply a soul. This library is my body. My current human form is just a convenient way to communicate, reflecting the preference of the person seeing me. She winked teasingly. Your preferences say a lot about you. Turan cut her off immediately. Don't talk nonsense, kid. She giggled. I'm like a reflection on the water's surface. You see me clearly, but you can never touch me. To confirm, Turan reached a hand toward her. His hand passed straight through her body as if passing through smoke. The girl looked at him with a strange expression. Don't do that. It feels weird. Turan quickly withdrew his hand. She grumbled, crossing her arms. I hate that I can't directly deal with the intruders in the library. If I could, I would have given them a beating long ago for daring to take books out without returning them. Turan suddenly realized something important. Even the head of the Voltas house doesn't know you exist, right? Perhaps no one in this library has ever known. She nodded as if reading his mind. Because until now, no one has been qualified enough to perceive my existence. The one who created me reached a limit. Only those whose form has reached a certain level of completion can see me. And as far as I know, you're the only one. She tilted her head playfully. Kinda romantic, isn't it? Turan asked immediately. What is this form you're talking about? Mages usually call it bloodline. He took a deep breath and spoke. Can you tell me about my bloodline? You should probably ask your parents about that. Turan replied softly, his voice dropping. Unfortunately, I'm an orphan. She paused for a moment, then smiled. Then let me check directly. If you'll allow me to look over your body. Turan froze, his brain short-circuiting for a split second. Look over my body. But before he could react, her small hand passed straight through his chest. He jerked back with a cry. Oh, she smiled brightly. Done. Now you and I are connected. Don't say such weird things. It didn't even hurt, right? After a few seconds of scanning, she withdrew her hand and reported. Most of your bloodline consists of two main components, tracking and hunting, characteristic of the Zahar house, right? Turan nodded. She continued, but there's another bloodline mixed in. You are the result of parents with two different bloodlines. So what is the other bloodline? She shook her head regretfully. It's currently sealed. Being born with a sealed bloodline from the merger of two lineages isn't that unusual. When you become stronger, the seal will break on its own and reveal itself. Turan nodded silently, though the mystery still lingered in his mind. Afterward, he involuntarily thought of his mother. She had always been too refined, too educated to be just a commoner. Perhaps she had come from some noble house, but the bloodline had been diluted to the point where it could no longer maintain mana. He shook his head, clearing his thoughts, and turned to thank her. She smiled mischievously, eyes twinkling. If you're truly grateful, then stay for another month. From a day he learned the librarian's true identity, everything changed completely. Instead of reading quietly by himself, Turan constantly asked questions, demanding she explain every detail in depth. Surprisingly, she not only mastered every book still on the shelves, but also remembered the contents of those stolen or lost thousands of years ago, acting as a vivid archive of ancient knowledge. Under her guidance, he began to see the world through a completely new lens. Countless invisible substances surrounding us could be observed by suspending water into a lens. Sickness wasn't a curse, but came from creatures so tiny the naked eye couldn't see them. Decomposition happened because they slowly ate away at living matter. Light refracted, heat was generated from friction, and the body was injured then healed itself according to clear natural laws. All of it far exceeded the usual magical theories that mages taught. Turan immediately put it to the test. He placed a ripe red apple on the table, focusing on applying the knowledge of decomposition. With just a light touch, the apple immediately blackened from the inside, rotting rapidly as if time had fast-forwarded 100-fold. The librarian tilted her head and asked, "How does it feel?" Turan couldn't hide his amazement. "It's incredible. It's not that current magic can't do something similar, but by understanding the principles, I achieved the exact same result while consuming far less mana." Just a single shift in his worldview had raised his mage skills to a new level. But immediately after, a cold thought crept into his mind. The great houses probably deliberately monopolized this knowledge. If every mage understood the basic principles, the advantage of the elite would vanish. No wonder the general level of the world is steadily declining. The librarian spoke softly, her voice low. "I'm starting to understand why." Finally, Turan announced, "It's time for me to go." The kid librarian's eyes widened in genuine surprise. He explained, it seemed the owner of this place had started dropping hints for him to leave. Suddenly, she lunged forward in a panic, shouting, "Don't leave me behind." But her body passed straight through him, and she tumbled onto the floor. Turan asked calmly, "Can you leave the library?" She sat on the floor, head bowed. "I can't." "Then stay here forever. Cook, tell stories, whatever works." Turan shook his head. "I can't do that." She pouted, knowing full well he wouldn't stay. Before he stepped out the door, she offered some advice. "This land is full of ruins of the gods. Ancient heritages are scattered everywhere. If you search, you might encounter spirits who know even more than I do." Turan turned back and smiled. "I promise to come back and visit you every now and then." She shrugged, pretending to be indifferent. "Whatever." But her eyes were glistening. She was clearly just trying to hide her emotions. Turan gave a reassuring smile. "Besides, there are still countless books here I haven't finished reading." Leaving the city of Orem, Turan walked alone on a long, winding road. From the continental map found in the library, he knew the Zahar House territory lay to the east, amidst a vast and harsh desert. That would be his next destination. If he went there, perhaps Turan would find clues about his parents. The sun gradually set, dyeing the sky in brilliant shades of orange mixed with deep red. After walking for a while, Turan stopped in a quiet corner, sat down, and breathed steadily, telling himself, "There's no need to rush. If those clues were gone, they would have vanished 18 years ago. If they still exist, they won't disappear just because I'm a little late." The next day, Turan set out again. On the road heading east, he came across bodies scattered along the path, dried blood staining the ground, the faint smell of death in the air. Despite the gruesome sight, Turan didn't let it distract him. Suddenly, a neigh rang out from up ahead. Immediately, he ducked behind a dense bush, observing carefully. Before his eyes was a man lying motionless on the ground with serious wounds, and beside him was a bright red horse, standing tall to protect its master. Suddenly, the horse lunged forward at terrifying speed, attacking two figures standing opposite. Turan narrowed his eyes, thinking, "There's a saddle, so it wasn't a monster attack. Is this horse protecting its master?" Turan's gaze sharpened as he assessed the situation. Attacking from that direction, The two attackers revealed themselves. They were dark elves. One growled a curse. "Damn it, how is a beast this strong?" The other replied with a faint laugh. "Find an opening to break through." "You think it's that easy?" Observing more closely, Turan immediately realized their true nature. Both began to concentrate their power, a weird, dark energy spreading forward. Suddenly, the bodies lying scattered around began to twitch, twisting grotesquely before standing up. They had been resurrected as disgusting monsters following their master's orders. Seeing that gruesome sight, Turan remembered a passage from a book. This is the dark elf corpse summoning technique I read about in the library. He hesitated for a moment. Should I step in to help? Who knows if that man attacked the dark elves first? But thoughts still conflicted in Turan's mind. He continued to watch, eyes never leaving the battlefield, carefully weighing his next move. One dark elf knelt by a corpse, nonchalantly tearing at it with a distorted voice. Whose hand is this? Give me one. The other didn't even bother to look up. Eat your own part. I'm sure you grabbed one too, didn't you? Turan narrowed his eyes, thinking, so they're cannibals. Without another second's hesitation, Turan immediately activated his concealment ability. His entire presence vanished from all senses. At the same time, the second dark elf continued to grumble with disgust. The ones I killed are all men. The meat is tough as hell. Suddenly, an invisible attack struck with terrifying force. The dark elf was torn completely apart before he could even react. The other one froze, not understanding what had just happened before his eyes. No attacker, no warning, only instant death. But he quickly regained his composure and roared, "All of you, gather around me." Immediately, the entire horde of undead rushed over, forming a protective circle around. Another invisible attack lunged forward. This time, a monster leaped out to block it. Its sturdy horn deflected Turan's stone. The dark elf gnashed his teeth, screaming in a rage. Which one of you bastards is hiding there? Show yourself right now. He ordered the bull to charge and flatten everything. But then he suddenly realized something. Is this guy using a stealth skill? His face darkened. He summoned a new monster and sneered. Let's see if you can keep hiding after this. The fox-like monster released a strange surge of energy that spread throughout the area. As it touched him, Turan's concealment began to flicker, and his form gradually became visible again. The dark elf immediately locked eyes with Turan, a vicious, smug grin crossing his face. Found you, little prick. He issued an immediate order. All of you move out. Kill him. The swarm of monsters rushed toward Turan from every direction. He focused instantly, a violent flame gathering in his palm, growing brighter and hotter by the second. He lunged forward, engulfing two of the monsters in intense fire. But from the front, the massive bull monster seemed completely unfazed, charging ahead like an armored tank. Turan jumped to the side, dodging it by a hair's breadth, nearly getting crushed. He gritted his teeth. I have to hurry. Luckily, I took one out earlier. But when he looked back, Turan realized the situation was worse than expected. The fox had bitten deep into his leg, causing blood to pour out. He used all his strength to kick it away, creating a brief moment of space. But before he could even catch his breath, the crazed bull charged again at a terrifying speed. Before Turan could fully react, the devastating impact sent him flying backward, slamming into a large tree. Turan's entire body ached, and internal injuries made him cough up blood, making it nearly impossible to stand up. Seeing this, the dark elf laughed savagely. Serves you right. You dared to kill one of my kind? You'll be begging for death on your knees. Just then, the red horse suddenly charged back in. It delivered a powerful kick to the dark elf's face, sending him tumbling to the ground. Caught off guard and humiliated, he screamed in a panic, "Save me! Hurry up!" Immediately, all the monsters stopped attacking Turan and turned back to protect their master. The dark elf roared in fury. How dare you humiliate me like this? I'll kill you all. But before he could act, another sharp attack struck. The fatal blow pierced through his head, finishing him off in a single breath. As the dark elf died, all of his summoned monsters collapsed and vanished into thin air. The battlefield suddenly became eerily silent. Turan struggled to stand up, his body falling apart and blood flowing nonstop. He gasped for air, exhausted, thinking to himself, "It looks like I'm really about to die." Turan's body collapsed, his legs too weak to support him any longer. The horse slowly approached him. Turan reached out slightly to stroke its muzzle and whispered, "That's right. Thank you." The scene shifted to late at night, a quiet atmosphere blanketing the area. Turan sat by a small fire, and in front of him was the man who had just regained consciousness. At first, the man jumped, looking a bit scared. "Huh? This is..." Turan spoke calmly. "You're finally awake." The blond young man looked at Turan blankly. "Who are you?" I saw you being attacked by dark elves, so I stepped in to help. Hearing that, he turned to his horse and gently petted it. Turan observed the horse and remarked, "It's actually really smart. It even knew to protect its master and bring you to a safer place." The young man nodded, his voice full of gratitude. "I sincerely thank you for saving my life. I am Aziz of the Burke family." Turan replied, "And I'm Turan." After a moment of silence, Turan looked at Aziz and asked, "Is there a reason you were in conflict with the Dark Elves?" Aziz lowered his head and answered slowly, "A reason? None. I was on a pilgrimage with my attendants when we were suddenly attacked for no reason. I'd heard that other races were violent, but I didn't expect it to be this bad." His voice began to tremble, and his suppressed pain exploded as tears rolled down his cheeks. "I'm sorry. The people I lost today were very precious to me." Turan asked softly, "Were they your relatives?" Aziz shook his head. "They were the knights and attendants traveling with me, but they actually raised me since I was a child." Turan observed him quietly, thinking, "He's a kind person. This pain is very real. It can't be fake." After a while, Turan asked further, "How many dark elves attacked you?" "I think there were only those two," Aziz replied. "You said you killed two, right?" Turan gave a slight nod. Inside his mind, he activated his exploration ability, his senses expanding to scan the entire surrounding area. After a few seconds, Turan confirmed, "That's right, there really aren't any more of them around." After a brief silence, Aziz looked at Turan and asked politely, "Turan, are you in a hurry right now?" "I'm just on a pilgrimage, same as you." Aziz observed Turan with surprise for a moment, and then asked, "Even though you're this strong, you're still on a pilgrimage? Are you perhaps the son of a great house? But why are you traveling alone?" Turan replied vaguely, "It's hard to explain in detail. And honestly, I'm not that strong." He continued in a level voice, "I only managed to kill one because of an ambush and a surprise attack. The other one almost killed me. If it wasn't for your red horse, I wouldn't have one." As soon as he finished speaking, a strange phenomenon occurred. A faint blue energy radiated from Turan's body, spreading outward. At the same time, a bright red aura flared up from Aziz. The two energies collided gently in the space between them, creating an invisible pressure. Aziz observed Turan more closely and thought, "He's not actually that strong, is he? If he hadn't absorbed the Dark Elf's mana earlier, he'd probably be even weaker now. He was no match for those two dark mages. So how did he survive? Was it because of incredible combat instincts or a special bloodline? But if that's the case, why would someone like him be traveling alone?" Breaking the silence, Aziz spoke with a calmer voice. "If you don't have a specific destination, can I invite you to the Burke family?" He paused for a moment and then continued with sincerity, "I want to repay you for saving my life and escorting me home safely." Turan looked at him and asked briefly, "Repay me?" Aziz explained with a warm smile, "Our Bantus family is a vassal to the great house of Erebion in the north. Our lineage consists of artisans specializing in the art of making charms. We have been crafting magical artifacts for generations." His eyes held a quiet pride. "We will craft a perfect artifact, one that suits you best." Turan sat quietly listening to every word, silently weighing the offer put before him. Turan and Aziz quickly buried those who had fallen. He looked at his comrades and felt sad, as if the curtain had finally fallen on the whole ordeal. Deep down, I truly want to bring them all back home. That must be beyond my current abilities, right? Aziz turned to look at Turan. "I'm very grateful to you." "Turan, what are you thanking me for?" "Thank you for not mocking me. To be a noble and shed tears over the sacrifice of subordinates, it must seem like a very pitiful sight to you. Why would that be considered pathetic? Because those were the lessons my father drilled into me since I was young. Warriors who fall for a great cause will rest in the heavens with the gods. So mourning their departure is seen as a sign of weakness. A true noble must move forward bravely despite the sacrifices. However, if being strong means being indifferent to the death of loved ones, then I'm afraid I'll never achieve that kind of strength." Turan smiled slightly. "That's not weakness, it's your kindness. Please forgive me. Since we've decided to move forward together, can we talk more comfortably from now on? It seems our ages aren't that far apart." "Oh, I see. Just do whatever you want." "Great. From now on, I look forward to your support, my friend." Turan froze slightly as he looked at Aziz's hand. "Friends? I look forward to your help as well. Could we stop and rest for a moment?" Turan looked at Aziz's chest and wondered, What is this thing? This is a cooling device. I've been storing a lot of food in it since I was in the previous city. Does the temperature inside always stay cold? That's right. Thanks to that, every dish can be preserved for about a week without spoiling. If it gets too cold, I just heat them back up. And this is a magic tool that can create water with just the push of a button. And this is a magic tool that helps build a shelter if you collect enough firewood. A magic device that will signal an alarm if it detects someone approaching. Plus the outfit I'm wearing right now. It's a type of magic tool that features automatic stain cleaning. Hearing this made Tehran even more astonished. Magic tools shouldn't be used for such mundane purposes. This truly leaves me feeling completely amazed. That suit alone is worth the reward for saving your life. How can these items compare to my life? I promise to repay you with a much better gift when we get back to the family. Even if the elders don't agree, I'll personally craft one myself. Besides, no gift can make up for what you've contributed. I can't even count the number of spells you've deployed throughout the journey. From taming, freezing, and levitation to manipulating liquids, physical enhancement, lighting, chains, instant kill, terrain alteration, and even calling down light. Have you spent your whole life just studying magic? Or do you actually possess some kind of special bloodline ability? A capability that allows you to master any kind of magic at will? No, it's just that everything happens naturally like that. We already had an agreement that you wouldn't look into my family background. Aziz quickly waved his hand. No, I was just joking. There's no such thing as a bloodline that's that nonsensical. Anyway, how old are you this year? You look like a guy who's not even 30 yet. Don't tell me you're actually 80 already. It'll be about another month before I officially turn 19. The answer left Aziz overwhelmed. Really? I've turned 43 this year. Well, a 24-year gap doesn't seem like much of a problem between us, does it? Oh, I should have noticed that sooner. Especially when you told me about taking down those two necromancers with that insane level of mana. Who would have thought two such geniuses could exist in the world at the same time? Who are the two people you're talking about? Well, although she hasn't reached your level yet, or maybe she's equivalent. Either way, that person's bloodline truly can't be underestimated. After all, I know another genius roughly your age, and that's my cousin Misa. Could you ask that person to craft a magic tool for me? Aziz shook his head. Unfortunately, no. She doesn't belong to my branch of the family, but to the main family. If she's a member of the main family, then could it be? Exactly. She is the princess of the great house of Arabian. It's very likely she will take over as the head of the great house in the near future. Unlike common mage families, the leader of a great house doesn't easily pass down power to their direct descendants. Because in a great house, there are always dozens of relatives of the same age, and among that crowd, there's always someone stronger than the leader's chosen child. Even so, among the leader's children, Misa possesses the most outstanding natural talent. In just 10 short years since her mana awakening, Misa has mastered all of the Arabian bloodline magic along with every type of combat magic. As a result, she has all the support even though she's only 21 right now. Her mana reserves are already not far behind the key figures in the clan. With such great magical power at this age, is the family giving her any special training? With such great magical power at this age, is the family giving her any special training? Tehran thought to himself, it's true that great houses always have a reason for maintaining their top position. But it seems we've finally reached our destination. Aziz pointed forward, and a vast field appeared before the two of them. That is the Deccan Plain, the central territory of the Arabian house, managed by the Burke family of the Zabalan region. As soon as they both entered the mansion, the head of the Burke family walked over in worry. Aziz, my son, what terrible thing has happened to you? Aziz ran over to hug her, crying. Mom! In the back, Tehran was very surprised by this scene. He's actually 43 years old. Another man walked over and spoke. Aziz, pay a little more attention to your demeanor and dignity. At the very least, you should call her lady properly, shouldn't you? The real issue isn't the title, is it? I sincerely apologize. He stood up straight and turned toward Tehran. Oh, let me introduce you. This is Tehran, a new friend I made in the South. He is the benefactor who disregarded danger to save my life when I was close to death. Without this friend's help, I wouldn't have made it back home alive. The head of the family stepped forward and placed a hand on Aziz's shoulder. Your pilgrimage shouldn't have involved this much risk. In short, what happened to you all? Our group was attacked by necromancers of the Dark Elf faction. Hearing that, she shouted in a rage. The Dark Elves? Those filthy creatures dared to lay a hand on my son? I won't be satisfied until I personally lead an army to wipe them all out. Please calm down, my lady. People around here are watching us. So, may I ask which family this benefactor comes from? This was actually a very difficult question to answer. Why is it hard to say? Ma'am, to be honest, I'm not very sure about that myself. I am the son of a commoner mother, and I have no idea who my father is. Aziz was stunned when he heard that. What? You never mentioned this to me. Because it's not exactly something to be proud of. I see. So your name is Tehran, and you don't belong to any prestigious family. Since you saved the child who is our family's priceless treasure, in the name of the head of the Burke family, I will grant you a fitting reward. However, arranging a guest room in this mansion will be a bit difficult. Therefore, I will arrange for you to stay at the best inn in the area instead of the main house castle. Mom, what are you saying? My lady, why won't you welcome my savior into our very own home? At any other time it would be fine, but right now our house is hosting an extremely important guest. Even for a benefactor, it's difficult to allow a stranger of unknown origin into the palace at times like this. I hope you can understand the inconvenience. As soon as the words were spoken, someone suddenly appeared and spoke. Doing that on my account is really unnecessary. I don't believe someone who risked their life to save Aziz would suddenly want to assassinate me. From the doorway of the room, a girl with black hair appeared. Her face was pale, and her eyes were cold. Aziz turned to ask, Maisa, is that you? Why did you suddenly show up here? Was that woman the princess of the Arabian house? She looks more like a walking corpse than a noble princess, doesn't she? It hasn't been long since I almost lost my life at the hands of those Gaha scum. That's why I had to come here, to take temporary refuge. An assassination plot right at the main estate? With such a strict security system, there's no way it could be. There must be a high probability that a traitor has appeared from within. There are plenty of people in the family who find her to be an eyesore. Anyway, I'm exhausted, so I'll go back to my room to rest first. Good night, everyone. After she left, the head of the family turned to the servant. Prepare the second-class guest room for VIPs to welcome Tehran. And so, a peaceful night passed. Tehran woke up on a soft bed. He quickly changed and stepped out into the hallway, staring intently at the lamp on the wall. Suddenly, Aziz's voice rang out. Hey Tehran, you're up early. What are you doing standing out here in the hallway all by yourself? He pointed to the lamp and said, That object accidentally caught my attention. That thing? Oh, you mean that magic lamp? She used to make these while practicing her spells when she was a kid. Do you want one? There are plenty left in the storage. I don't think I really need it that much. Suddenly, a horrific sound rang out, making him freeze. A terrifying bolt of lightning struck right outside the window. Tehran quickly turned his face toward the source of the light. Aziz explained calmly. Looks like Maisa is practicing magic again. She's always so hardworking. That's the bloodline magic of the Arabian family, isn't it? That's right. It's called the Storm Bloodline. I've never hated my own blood, but that kind of power really makes others envious. It looks as majestic as a god. Tehran's eyes narrowed, thinking, I'm starting to get curious about it myself. I wonder how much power the next successor of the Arabian house will possess. Do you want to come with me and take a look? Even though I'm curious, I'm afraid it wouldn't be good if someone suspected like me got too close. Aziz smiled slightly. What's there to worry about? You're not an assassin, and I've already vouched for you. Honestly, I'm very curious to see who between you and Maisa is actually more talented. I'm guessing this is the real reason you want me to come along. Aziz didn't deny it, but flatly accepted. To be honest, a few years ago, I sparred with Maisa, and I've been holding on to that resentment ever since. I really want to see her taste defeat just once. The two of them quickly ran outside. Aziz shouted from afar, Sister Maisa? She turned back to look at him and replied, Aziz? And who's this traveling with you? My lady, I am Tehran. Oh, I remember now, the one named Tehran. So what wind blew you two all the way out here? Aziz scratched his head and explained, It's nothing big, we just saw you practicing and wanted to join in. We've tried this before, remember? She scratched her chin, remembering. Oh, I remember very well. That time it took you a whole week to do it, while it only took me the second try. After that failure, you burst into tears and ran away. Sister, don't say everything like that. Tehran couldn't help but laugh when he heard that. I'm sorry about that. Aziz sighed helplessly. Are you planning on mocking me too? Anyway, Tehran here is one of the most talented people in magic I've ever met. His abilities are truly nonsensical, just like a monster. How about you two try to compete in a match? Misa was slightly surprised. You want to spar with me? She stared intently at Turan. The sky above suddenly darkened as lightning tore through the air. The sky above suddenly darkened as lightning tore through the air. Misa's body was gradually covered by violent mana, finally turning into an overwhelming force, just like a powerful god. That surge of energy easily made Turan dizzy and tremble. His eyes were full of despair. A few minutes later, when the sky cleared, Turan stood opposite Misa, gasping for breath, sweat soaking his pale face. Clearly, the power gap was immeasurable. Misa narrowed her eyes slightly and spoke. I'm sorry to have to be blunt about this, but it seems you're still not at a high enough level to face me. At this point, Aziz stepped in with a bright smile. In terms of pure mana, he's definitely no match for you. But what's really amazing about him is his ability to learn magic. Aziz placed a hand on Turan's shoulder and declared, He is a genius like none I've ever seen in my life. Aziz looked at Misa and asked, Even you might not have reached that level of genius, right, Misa? Misa replied, Since you praise him so much, let me check it for myself. Turan looked back at her and suggested a new way to compete. Then each of us will perform a type of magic that the other probably doesn't know. Whoever performs it faster wins. Aziz turned to Misa. That's a good idea. What do you think? Misa replied. I heard that Turan doesn't even know what his hereditary bloodline magic is, right? If I use innate magic, it won't be fair, so I won't use it in this match. She continued. In that case, I'll go ahead and start first. Misa stepped into the middle of the training ground and lightly tapped her foot on the stone surface. A small sprout suddenly pierced through the ground. Turan and Aziz watched as the sapling grew at an incredible rate, turning into giant vines that wrapped around the entire training ground. Aziz cried out in a panic as the vines wrapped tightly around him and lifted him into the air. He was hung upside down, while Misa looked at Turan and said, This is magic that creates and manipulates plants. Can you do it? Let me down, I'm getting really dizzy. But Misa ignored him and said with a slight laugh, Just hang there for a while. It's quite a sight to see. Turan observed the vines and thought about the principles of magic. Fire magic is just a combustion phenomenon. Water magic is just gathering tiny, invisible moisture molecules from the air. These vines are the same. This magic forces the seeds already sown in the soil to germinate quickly. In other words, this isn't creation, but the acceleration of growth. He knelt down, placed his palm flat on the hard stone, and whispered, Grow. A surge of brilliant blue mana spread out. In an instant, a series of blue vines exploded from the ground, wrapping around Turan perfectly according to his will. Misa looked at the scene with an astonished face. You just relied on the words grow and discovered the true nature of this magic yourself, didn't you? Have you ever seen this magic anywhere before? Turan shook his head. This is the first time I've seen it. Misa let out a light hum. It turns out the praise Aziz gave today was actually true. That rarely happens. She dispelled the magic, causing Aziz to fall to the ground with a thud, groaning in pain. Misa stood up straight and said, Now it's your turn to give me a challenge. Turan thought to himself, using bloodline magic here would be suicide. Suddenly, he remembered something and reached out toward the tall grass. A small mouse ran out from the grass and toward him. Misa looked at the mouse and asked suspiciously, Is it just animal control magic? Is this your limit? Turan caught the mouse, holding it tightly in his hand. It's not like that. This little creature is just the ingredient for my magic. He cast a spell, and blue energy began to dance around the mouse's struggling body. Its life force was drained, its body withering rapidly. The mouse turned into a desiccated corpse in Turan's palm. He held up the desiccated mouse corpse and said, I'm finished. Misa looked on with a serious expression. Not bad. Now it's my turn. She gave a slight wave of her hand, and another mouse scurried over. She caught it and attempted to use the same type of magic as Turan, but nothing happened. She closed her eyes to focus, thinking, this isn't ordinary magic. How on earth did he do it? Aziz watched the scene and asked, Why are you using such a disgusting type of magic? He looked at Misa, silently evaluating. Even a great house like the Arabians doesn't clearly understand this principle. Aziz looked at Misa and smiled. It looks like things aren't going too well for you. Misa, do you want to concede the victory to Turan? She looked visibly annoyed and snapped back. Stop being so loud. You really think I can't do this? Misa gritted her teeth. In the process of using magic, the relationship between cause and effect is an incredibly complex structure. Whether a desired phenomenon occurs naturally or whether the amount of mana spent is enough to manifest, it is one thing. But most importantly, it's the ability to empathize with the source that leads to that phenomenon. That is the key requirement that determines the success rate of the casting as well as the level of magical energy consumption. One method to compensate for flaws in the principle when using magic is to cram in a massive amount of mana, using quantity to make up for inefficiency. Just a little more time, she whispered. Rot away while you're still alive. Suddenly, the mouse in her hand let out a pathetic shriek. Its flesh began to decay. The creature quickly turned into a dried-out corpse exactly like Tehran's. Aziz cheered. It's a success. Aziz cheered. It's a success. Suddenly, a wave of intense exhaustion hit her. Her vision blurred as she collapsed to the ground. Aziz frantically shouted her name and ran to support her. Tehran and Aziz knelt beside her. Sister, what's wrong? Tehran thought to himself. What's the reason? Did she use too much mana? Usually, people don't pass out just from mana depletion like that. At most, they get so tired they can't stand because the energy maintaining their physical state is gone. But why did? He looked at her hand and realized the problem. Ah, I see, that's it. She's suffering from a lack of physical nutrition. Tehran picked her up and asked, Is there a mage nearby with healing abilities? Aziz shook his head. No one like that nearby, Tehran said. Then hurry and bring water and salt to her room and call for the adults to help. As he carried her, he realized she was so light he almost mistook her for a lamb instead of human. A while later, Maisa slowly opened her eyes. Aziz's mother rushed into the bedroom, shouting in concern. Maisa, are you awake? How are you feeling? Maisa asked weakly. Why am I here? The woman explained. Aziz said you suddenly fainted while practicing magic with that guest. Is that what happened? Maisa fell silent as she recalled everything. The woman worried. Did that man do something to you? Maisa shook her head. No, it wasn't his fault. I was just a bit careless. Please, everyone leave the room. My head hurts. Her aunt paused and said, I made some porridge for you. She placed a bowl on the nightstand. I know you often skip meals because of your magic training, but you have to think about your health. Try to eat a little. Having said her piece, she sighed and left the room. Maisa watched her go and whispered, Thanks. She looked at the porridge, lifted it, and took a spoonful, but a horrific memory suddenly flooded back. Her mother and sister being attacked, crying and begging her to save them because they believed she could do it. Maisa groaned in pain, her hand trembling until the bowl dropped and shattered on the floor. She tried to calm herself, but this torment continued almost endlessly. Meanwhile, Tehran was taken down to the family dungeon and found himself standing before a shrine to the goddess. He looked at the massive winged statue under the golden light of the dungeon. A guard dressed in black drew his sword and said, Both the door and the walls are incredibly sturdy, not a single crack. They've been tempered for hundreds of years, so give up on any ideas of breaking them to escape. This man's name was Haram. Tehran replied, I understand. I wasn't even thinking about doing that. Haram stepped closer and emphasized, It's very sturdy. Tehran nodded. Yes. Haram got right in Tehran's face again. Extremely sturdy. Tehran thought to himself, Is he trying to show off to me? Suddenly, Haram swung his long sword with agile precision. Tehran followed the movement, unable to hide his curiosity. What are you doing? Haram replied, I am practicing. Haram moved his body rhythmically, performing a series of strikes and footwork. Every slash he unleashed was perfectly precise, the sign of a seasoned swordsman. Tehran observed closely. There wasn't a single wasted motion. Every movement was the minimum preparation for the next power strike. Tehran wondered, Is this the efficiency of a truly trained body? Haram stopped and suddenly stared intently at Tehran. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I bothering you? Not at all. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I bothering you? Not at all. He was flustered but quickly answered. I think it's truly incredible. Haram took a step back and gave a slight smile. I see. He slowly raised his sword and explained. Most nobles consider martial arts pointless because it's much easier for them to use magic for long-range attacks. It's all because their bodies are weak and their spirits can't control their physical forms, so they rely on cheap tricks. Tehran replied. Unless it's a bloodline specialized in physical combat like the descendants of Hercules, focusing on mana is usually more effective. However, through various trials, situations will eventually arise where one is forced to face it whether they want to or not. Afterward, Haram handed the sword to Tehran. Take it. Tehran was surprised. You're actually handing a weapon to a suspicious person like me, even though you were sent to guard me? Haram laughed. It's fine. This weapon is just a piece of scrap metal anyway. What makes it a sword is the body of the user. With your weak body, you couldn't even cut me. Tehran gripped the sword, thinking, with this sword, what can I actually do? Haram watched him intently. Watch this. Tehran's entire body erupted in a brilliant blue aura and powerful mana. An intimidating strength radiated as he held the sword and looked straight at Haram. Haram immediately shouted, "Wrong. Don't channel mana into the weapon yet." Tehran calmly replied, "Yes, sir." Immediately, he withdrew all the energy, making the blue aura vanish as if it had never been there. Haram stepped closer and directly corrected Tehran's posture. He placed a hand on his shoulder, nudging his center of gravity forward and saying, "Put more weight on your front leg. Press down so the ground takes the force for you." He observed Tehran's arm and frowned. "Your elbow is too high. With a weak elbow like that, you can't control the weight of the sword." He pointed to Tehran's thigh and warned, "If you keep your stance like this, your thigh will be pierced by your opponent." Then he ordered, "Raise your hand higher. Don't set limits for yourself." Tehran immediately responded clearly, "Yes, sir." Haram nodded slightly, looking satisfied. "Good. Repeat it 10 more times." He continued to remind him, "Don't stop breathing. Send the breath directly into your muscles." The experienced guard stood by watching, silently judging Tehran's body to be an ideal vessel. If given the chance, he wanted to fully exploit the potential of this physique. Haram explained sternly, "Mana is just a small trick. Mages often mistakenly believe their physical abilities are a given, but those are just the minimum functions the body naturally has. A properly trained body can tear apart a battlefield without using mana. You need to understand that difference." Tehran was out of breath from the intensity of the training, but still replied, "I'll keep that in mind." Just then, the heavy doors of the temple opened. Aziz's mother entered the room with a serious face. She bowed deeply and said, "Please forgive me. I have done the unforgivable to the family's benefactor." Tehran remained calm and replied, "I am the one who should apologize. I assume the young lady isn't hurt. For a guest to behave like that was truly improper." The head of the family spoke. "Maisa wants to apologize to you directly. Do you have some free time?" Afterward, Tehran met Maisa alone in a large parlor. She stood by the window, her gaze slightly awkward. "This situation is a mess. I heard you were held in the temple because of me. Sorry for causing unnecessary drama." Tehran stepped closer and said, "It was necessary. I'm just glad you're safe." Maisa looked straight at him and asked, "Yesterday's magic, especially that type that made the animal rot, is that an unannounced bloodline magic?" The mana consumption was nonsensically high. "Did you lie to me?" Tehran shook his head. "No. If you understand the principle behind it, you can use it much more easily as well." Maisa gave a soft huff. "If you don't reveal the method, there's no proof it's not bloodline magic, right?" Tehran replied, "I don't particularly care about winning or losing." Maisa looked confused. "What do you mean? If it ends like this, the reputation of an Arabian princess like me will suffer," she suggested. "If you tell me the secret of that magic, I'll teach you one of the secret techniques of the Arabians." Tehran smiled. "If you say so, then fine." He began to explain everything required to cast that magic. Maisa held the mouse in her hand and spoke. "Basically, the root of this magic is biological enhancement magic, isn't it? You use microorganisms that can't be seen with the naked eye, right?" "Exactly." She sighed and admitted, "No wonder. I used it without understanding, and that's why it turned out like that. It's frustrating, but I guess I lost to you. Even though I eventually succeeded, it was entirely by forcing it with pure mana." She sighed and admitted, "No wonder. I used it without understanding, and that's why it turned out like that. It's frustrating, but I guess I lost to you. Even though I eventually succeeded, it was entirely by forcing it with pure mana." She looked a bit embarrassed and suggested, "Can you tell Aziz it was a draw? I don't want to see him get all full of himself." Tehran nodded in agreement. "Then for the payment, I should probably use this." Then Maisa took out a comb and ran it through her hair to illustrate and explain. As you can see, when two objects rub together long enough, they create a phenomenon of mutual attraction. But before she could explain further, Tehran said, "Static electricity." Mice's expression immediately froze in shock. "You already knew?" She confirmed. "That's right," Mice muttered. "This alone is considered one of the profound, secret techniques of my family. So, I need to think more about how to repay you. I have to find something you don't know yet." Finally, she suggested, "Until I think of a fitting payment, let's train together from now on." She hastily added, "This is just to pay the debt, not because I specifically need you." Tehran smiled and agreed. "All right, from tomorrow, let's meet in the garden in the afternoon." Afterward, Tehran was invited to a lavish dining hall. Aziz's mother spoke modestly. "The meal is nothing special, but please eat your fill." Aziz looked at the banquet table and asked in shock, "Why was such a lavish meal prepared? I've never even seen a meal like this for my birthday." Anyone looking at this would think the Arabian lords were a royal family. "Shut up, boy." Tehran sat down and was equally overwhelmed. This definitely wasn't an ordinary meal. The head of the family turned to Tehran and asked, "So, shall we continue our previous conversation? My son promised to gift you a powerful magic artifact to repay his life-saving debt, right?" Tehran confirmed, "Yes." She asked, "Do you have any specific requests?" Tehran answered, "I want a defensive support artifact. Hurting others with magic is easy, but protecting oneself is much harder. If possible, I want something that can protect against surprise attacks." The head of the family said, "I've crafted similar items before, so it's not hard, but I don't have one ready immediately." Aziz suggested, "Then can I craft it for him myself?" His mother immediately stopped him. "If you don't want to tarnish the honor of the Burke family, give up on that idea." Aziz's older brother, Mello, raised his hand to take the job. "I'll craft it personally. I just finished a commission from the main family, so I'm free right now." The head of the family asked, "So how will it be built?" Mello explained, "To defend against surprise attacks, it's best to have something you can carry with you at all times. I plan to embed mana into jewelry like a ring, earring, or necklace to create a function that activates the defensive power of the Guardian bloodline." The head of the family nodded. "How long to complete it?" "Please give me 1 month," she remarked. Nothing is more tactless than parents bragging about their kids, but Mello is already a mage nearly as skilled as I am. He possesses a natural talent equal to a family leader, so you don't need to worry." Tehran said, "Thank you very much, but a magic artifact crafted by the family's top mage over a whole month is probably too much." The head of the family replied, "Not at all. My son's life cannot be taken so light. Please stay with our family for a month as an honored guest. Make yourself at home." The next morning, as Tehran and Aziz walked down the street, Aziz said, "My mother seems to really like you. Last night, I told her about your talent and how you're always working hard at your training. Initially, she tended to look down on you as a wandering noble with no backing, but that view has changed now." Tehran remarked, "It seems she wants to recruit me into the family." Aziz confirmed, "Exactly. My mother often acts generous to make others feel indebted, then introduces a beautiful lady to entice them to join the family." Tehran felt it was a hassle, but Aziz reassured him, "Don't think too much about it. That magic gear is just a gift. It's not like you have to get married just because you accepted it." "My mother isn't that classless." Aziz asked, "What's your plan for today?" Tehran replied, "I have magic training scheduled with Misa this evening." "Great, then come on a patrol with me for a bit. Jabin might not be the capital, but there's plenty of fun to be had. Don't tell me you're going to stay cooped up in your room practicing magic all day when the weather is this nice." "Well, actually, yes." Aziz laughed loudly. "There's still plenty of time. Walk with me. Life is short. It's a waste not to enjoy it, you know." The two went to a casino, but Tehran shook his head. "I don't play." They went to a lively bar. Aziz drank, but Tehran still shook his head. The two continued wandering around. While passing through the market, Tehran suddenly stopped in front of a large poster. He stared at the face of the person drawn on it, thinking to himself, "Is this the person I know? Don't tell me that's the famous Knight Corn." Afterward, the two went to see a play. The play told the story of the Knight Corn defeating enemies in the desert with the help of the gods. When the play ended, Tehran applauded enthusiastically and said, "That was great." Early the next morning, Tehran opened his eyes to find Haram standing there, staring at him intently. Haram asked, "Has your body rested enough?" "Yes." "Why have you come all this way?" "Yesterday, I realized your body has great potential. It's time for some serious training. Follow me." Tehran thought to himself that training would be more beneficial than just going out to have fun. "No, let's go." Right then, Aziz burst into the room and said cheerfully, "There's a fantastic performance today." But when he saw Haram, Aziz's face immediately fell in fear. Why are you here?" Haram said coldly. "I was just about to take him for training. Your weak body needs some work too. Want to join?" Aziz frantically made an excuse. "Huh? No thanks. I just got back, and my body hasn't recovered yet. I'm leaving now." Having said that, he ran out as fast as he could. Tehran watched him go, feeling confused at first. But a moment later, he understood why when Haram put him through a high-intensity training session. Haram stood high above supervising, while Tehran had to do push-ups with massive weights on his back. "Don't listen to the complaints of your body. One more time." Tehran groaned in pain, but Haram remained strict. "If you give in to just a bit of pain, it means your mind is being controlled by the weakness of your body. Keep going one more time." After finishing the final rep, Tehran collapsed on the floor, gasping for air, his face pale with exhaustion. Haram looked at him and asked, "Tired?" "Very tired." Haram smiled and explained, "You should feel lucky that you're a mage. For a mage, training once is enough." "Is it different if you're not a mage?" "Of course. An ordinary person's body will get weaker over time, even if it's tempered, so they have to train continuously to maintain it. But a mage will use mana to keep their body in peak condition." Suddenly Haram gave a meaningful smile. "All right, I'm sure you've rested enough, haven't you?" Tehran's face went pale instantly. "No, I just started resting." "You've rested enough. Your body can't lie. Now I'll teach you how to use a weapon in combat." Tehran screamed in despair as the training continued at an even higher intensity. The following days at the Burke family were incredibly busy. Every morning, Tehran trained with Haram in a special area where body weight was multiplied many times. Just one wrong step and his whole body could be crushed into the floor. In the evening, he returned to the mansion to practice magic with Misa. She taught him how to generate electricity through finger friction, making yellow sparks of lightning flash between his hands. Before he knew it, 3 weeks had passed. Tehran tried to fire a bolt of lightning at a target, but kept missing. Misa, standing behind him, commented, "It seems you're having more trouble than expected." Tehran gave a wry smile. "Maybe it's because I'm not an Arabian." Misa admitted, "Even I find it hard to guide you, because I never thought about controlling magic this way. I just fire it and it hits." Just then, a man appeared and called for Princess Misa. He turned to Tehran and looked at him wonderingly. Misa frowned and asked urgently, "What is it? Speak quickly." "I said that during the recovery phase, members of the main family are forbidden from bothering me." "Yes, but the patriarch has summoned you." "What for?" "If it's a stupid reason, I won't let it slide." The man reported frantically. "Emergency situation. The Dark Elves are wreaking havoc in the south. 3 cities have fallen. The main family is preparing to assemble an expeditionary force." Tehran's expression hardened, thinking, "They've appeared already?" After hearing everything, Misa nodded. "I understand. Tell them I'll be back right away." She turned to Tehran and added, "I think I have to go now. Speaking of which, I should pay you back for that disgusting decomposition magic." Having said that, Misa clasped her hands together, looked straight at Tehran, and asked, "Did you know that electricity also flows inside the human body?" Tehran was stunned and replied in confusion. "Electricity? What do you mean?" Misa said calmly. "You didn't know? Well, I guess that makes sense. This is a secret of the Arabian family. Tell you what, if I teach you that technique, we'll call it even. It'll definitely be a big help." Tehran thought for a moment and then nodded. "I understand." Misa began to explain in a steady tone, sharing everything she knew. When a person sees or feels something, that part sends a tiny electrical signal to the brain. If it's through the eyes, the signal goes from the eyes to the brain. If it's a smell, from the nose to the brain. She continued to describe the entire process in detail, knowledge that sounded both mysterious and profound. The brain receives sensations through those electrical flows. Then, the brain sends electrical signals back throughout the body to command movement. Tehran listened intently to every word, focusing absolutely. Although he didn't quite understand it yet, there must be a reason for it. The information in the library at the beginning also recorded similar things. Perhaps this is part of the natural laws inherited by the Arabian family. So what if we use mana to boost the speed of these electrical currents? Awareness and reaction speed would increase, wouldn't they? Exactly. You're more suited to being a scholar than a warrior, aren't you? Well, I'll demonstrate it for you right now. I'm curious to see how quickly you grasp it. Afterward, wanting to grasp the concept more deeply, he slowly closed his eyes. He focused on repeating the idea in his head, a tiny electrical signal. As the thought echoed, the change became apparent. Electricity began to spread across his face, weak at first, but quickly strengthening. In the next instant, his eyes glowed brightly, crackling with energy like thunder. In the next instant, his eyes glowed brightly, crackling with energy like thunder. The surrounding air fell into an unusual silence, as if frozen by the sudden surge of power. Tehran stood there facing Maisa. She looked at him calmly and asked, "How are you feeling?" Tehran stood in a daze, as if pulled into a completely foreign state. "Feel the difference yet?" Only one thought echoed in his head. "What is this?" Only one thought echoed in his head. "What is this?" Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced through his head. Tehran immediately clutched his head, tried to endure the horrific headache that came with the surging sensation. Tehran immediately clutched his head, trying to endure the horrific headache that came with the surging sensation. It'll definitely be hard to adjust now because of the headache, but once you're used to it, you'll be able to maintain it for quite a while. Tehran was still trying to understand what he had just experienced. He muttered, "No matter how I think about it, this is too valuable compared to what I gave." Maisa gave a small laugh, looking a bit amused. She floated into the air and said, "This is just an investment because you seem to have some talent." She continued from above, "If you learn even more terrifying magic later, I'll take it all back, including the debt from this time." With that, Maisa flew away quickly, disappearing from Tehran's sight in a blink. The scene shifted to a vast and peaceful blue sky, in total contrast to what had just occurred. Under that sky, a massive crowd was gathering in a place radiating an atmosphere of unease and expectation. This is Morgan City, the heart of the Deccan Plains. The crowd was chanting a slogan in unison. The shout echoed through the air. "Long live the Arabian family! Long live the Arabian family!" It's just a departure ceremony for the Sand Elves, but it looks like a victory parade. Look at their enthusiasm. As he finished speaking, Aziz's gaze shifted forward and suddenly lit up with excitement. "It's Maisa. Maisa is here." But before he could do anything else, a man gripped his hand tightly and said, "Aziz, maintain some aristocratic dignity." Aziz tried to respond, his voice thick with emotion, "Father," but he couldn't finish the sentence. Just then, an announcement echoed through the area. The head of the house was entering. The entire atmosphere immediately fell silent. The soldiers instantly stood at attention, their posture disciplined and perfect. Tehran observed it all and thought to himself, "That man is the current head of the Arabian family, but in Arabia." The man looked straight ahead, his blue eyes striking even from a distance. But there was something wrong with his condition. The man looked straight ahead, his blue eyes striking even from a distance. But there was something wrong with his condition. Aziz replied, "I heard rumors he was seriously injured fighting the head of the GA family a while back, but that was a long time ago. Maybe it's just old age now." On the other side, the family head slowly raised his hand. All the soldiers acted as one in absolute unity. Every eye turned toward the sky. A terrifying sight appeared. The entire sky was swallowed by a black shroud. The air grew heavier and more horrific by the second. "Believe that I am always supporting you from behind as you step forward. This is the power of the Arabian family." Within those dark clouds, golden lightning began to roar, flashing across the sky. Everyone watched in awe, and then the cheers grew louder. "Long live Arabian! Lord of Thunder, protect your descendants." Tehran witnessed the overwhelming display before him and thought, "This is the power of the Arabians." Even with his body in such poor condition, he easily covered the entire area. This is the absolute peak of magic that a human can achieve. One day, I will reach that ultimate realm as well. The scene shifted elsewhere. Someone reached out, holding a bracelet, and said, "Here, take this." He explained, "Just wearing it will boost your stamina a bit. If you channel mana into it, the boost will be even higher. At its limit, it can reach a level equivalent to an elite bloodline guardian noble, but consumes a lot of mana, so it's best not to maintain it for too long." Tehran looked at the item with visible amazement. This was truly an incredible treasure. Something like this surely wasn't common, even among the great families. It was an exceptionally well-crafted item. At that moment, Aziz's mother spoke up. She looked at Tehran and asked, Tehran, are you interested in joining our family? This was something she had mentioned before. Tehran replied without hesitation, I'm very grateful for the offer, but I think that would be very difficult. She nodded calmly. I see. I've heard everything from Aziz, that you have a lot to do, so it will be hard for you to settle in one place. Just consider this the lingering regret of an old woman. Tehran said sincerely, I will never forget the hospitality I received from everyone. Lord Aziz and the family will always be my friends. She looked at Tehran gently. Yes, that is enough. Not long after, Tehran began his departure. As he stepped outside, both the instructor and Aziz came out to see him off. The instructor approached and tossed him a weapon. Keep it. It was a magic tool. It didn't have any major functions, but it was very durable and the blade was quite sharp. Tehran caught it and thanked him sincerely. Thank you, sir. He put it into his storage space, then turned to the instructor and respectfully called out, Master. The instructor just smiled with satisfaction and walked away without another word. Aziz stayed behind. He stepped up and handed Tehran a set of clothes. Here, these are for you. Tehran asked in surprise, What's this? Aziz laughed. You once mentioned being jealous of my clothes. They don't get dirty easily, and if they get a small tear, they'll self-repair. Here is a full set of a shirt and pants for you. Tehran looked at him, slightly stunned. Aziz paused for a moment and then asked, So, where are you planning to go now? Tehran answered briefly, East for starters. Aziz sighed, Kamen, huh? I've been there before. If you can help it, don't take a ship. The waves there are truly nightmare level. Even a wine glass starts dancing. Tehran thought to himself, to reach the Yaha lands of the El Desert, I'll have to cross those waves. But he couldn't say that out loud. Tehran thought to himself, to reach the Yaha lands of the El Desert, I'll have to cross those waves. But he couldn't say that out loud. Tehran continued to press forward without rest. The journey took him through many places. Alone once again. While walking, a thought popped up. Should I run for a bit? The very next moment, he exploded with incredible speed. He shot past the crowds, moving so fast that people only had time to turn their heads in shock, watching him like a passing ghost. At that speed, he crossed the entire city, traversed vast lands, and finally stopped in a remote area. For the first time in a long while, he stood still, looking up at the massive mountain looming before him. He took a deep breath, steadied his mind, and stepped straight into the mountains without hesitation. As he went deeper, he paused for a moment, focusing his sense of smell. The smell of a campfire. No, it was something much more disgusting. The smell of burning flesh. He drew closer. The truth gradually revealed itself before his eyes. He came upon a place that had been completely devastated. The houses were burned to the ground, leaving only charred black frames. Bodies lay scattered everywhere. The entire area was submerged in the heavy silence of destruction. Tehran thought, his gaze darkening. Could it have been a bandit attack? Dark elves couldn't have made it this far inland. He continued to walk through the ruined houses. The sight made him extremely uncomfortable. A quiet sadness washed over him. After a while, he entered a damaged house. While searching, he discovered a basement. This was the place. Without hesitation, he tried to open the door. After a moment, the hatch finally swung open. Inside was a little girl, huddled in fear. When the door opened, the girl burst into tears. Hey! The girl was still trembling as she hesitantly asked, Really? Yes. Tehran replied gently. Can you tell me what happened? Overcoming her fear, the girl said, That man killed everyone. He was a mage. A mage. But before the girl could say more, she suddenly collapsed unconscious. Tehran quickly caught her and checked her condition. Fortunately, it wasn't serious. She was likely just exhausted after being trapped in the basement for so long. I need to get this child to safety first. He carefully carried the girl outside. But the moment he stepped out, the air suddenly grew tense. Someone was aiming at him. A girl stood not far away, drawing a bow, her arrow pointed directly at him. Found you. She radiated a dangerous aura, clearly capable of using both fire and ice. The girl's voice rang out sharply. On your knees, you murderer. Despite being accused and threatened, Tehran remained absolutely calm, not panicking even for a sec. Across from him, the archer girl gripped her bowstring until her fingertips turned white. Wasn't all this enough for you? Now you're planning to kidnap a child too. Beside her, a fire mage took a half step forward, his gaze as cold as ash after a fire, standing perfectly still. If you so much as twitch, the consequences won't be pretty. Turan let out a soft breath, keeping his voice steady, trying to cut through the escalating atmosphere. Wait, this is all a misunderstanding. But before the explanation could be finished, disaster struck. In the moment of extreme tension, the fire mage's hand trembled, and a spark of mana slipped out of control, erupting into a violent flame that surged forward at a terrifying speed. A blinding light tore through the space as a massive explosion rang out, shaking the ground and blowing away the surrounding ash and debris. The archer girl's eyes widened in horror, her heart clenching. "Heal, you idiot, there's a kid there." The mage stepped back, his face pale, his voice breaking in panic. No, it was a slip, I didn't mean to." But when everyone's gaze shifted forward, they all froze. The fire, which should have swallowed everything, had been stopped easily, not by a complex barrier or high-level magic, but by a single hand. The fire, which should have swallowed everything, had been stopped easily, not by a complex barrier or high-level magic, but by a single hand. The artifact in his hand glowed faintly, creating an invisible layer of protection that completely neutralized the impact of the explosion. The area fell into absolute silence. Eyes filled with shock and fear were all fixed on him. He actually blocked it? With just his body. Trembling whispers broke out, as if no one could believe what they had just witnessed. As for the archer girl, her mind was in a whirl. What kind of magic was that? Could it be a bloodline ability? Turan took a step forward and spoke softly. "I am not the one who attacked this village. I repeat, this is a misunderstanding." He paused for a moment, his gaze turning cold. "But if you continue to attack, I won't just stand here and defend myself." The archer girl clenched her hand as a vague sense of unease crept into her heart. Her gaze slowly shifted to the little girl fainting in Turan's arms. After a long silence, the girl lowered her bow. "That makes sense." Her voice softened, no longer as sharp as before. "If you were the culprit, there'd be no reason for you to be here saving a child." She took a few steps forward, her gaze still cautious but less confrontational. "I'm Bisen. And you?" "Turan." The name was given as a short answer, devoid of extra emotion. Bisen nodded slightly, but her eyes were still searching. "Even though the circumstances aren't in your favor, and the evidence at the scene points against you, how can I trust you?" Turan replied without hesitation. "Just ask the girl when she wakes up. It seems she saw the one who actually did this." Bisen froze. "What?" "The girl saw the arsonist." Bisen froze. "What?" "The girl saw the arsonist." "The arsonist?" She frowned, her eyes showing a flicker of shock. "Don't tell me you don't know who he is." "I don't." The answer was so blunt it made her sigh. "He's a crazed mage who's been committing these crimes. For the past few months, he has been repeatedly attacking remote villages, tying up the residents, and burning them alive." The air around them seemed to grow cold. There were no survivors. No one knows if it's a man or a woman. Only a single name. The arsonist. Right then, the little girl behind them stirred slightly, her voice weak but clear. He wore a red cloak and had a beard on his face. He looked very scary, like a woodcutter. Everyone immediately listened to every detail, clinging to every tiny clue. Bisen turned back to Turan, her gaze having changed, her suspicion replaced by consideration. She stepped closer with her teammates and bowed her head. "I'm so sorry. We were too hasty and acted rudely." The fire mage also bowed, his regret evident. "I sincerely apologize as well." Turan looked at them, his eyes thoughtful. Even among the nobility, there were still people who placed responsibility above ego. He nodded slightly. "At least you should look after the child first. That will be enough." Then he asked, his voice returning to its initial calm. "Are you here to catch the arsonist?" Bisen nodded. "Yes. When I saw the signs of a fresh fire, I thought we'd finally caught him, but it wasn't him after all." Then her eyes lit up, as if finding new hope. "But now that we have a description, it won't be long. I have someone on my team with excellent tracking abilities." Turan raised an eyebrow slightly. "Tracking? Don't tell me you're from the Zahar family. Then why are you all in a place like this?" Bisen shook her head, her voice certain. "No, I am Bisen Carmain, from the Carmain family. And these are my friends from my vassal families." She briefly explained the Asha bloodline, a rather weak lineage from Zahar that focused on tracking but lacked stealth capabilities. In the family, They call it the primal bloodline. Suddenly, her gaze became more serious than ever. More importantly, I have a proposal for you. Tehran, can you help us hunt down that arsonist? You can take the entire bounty after he's captured. I'll even give you my share of the mana. What I need right now is just the credit. The area was silent for a few seconds. Tehran began to ask, do you know how strong he is? At least a noble level mage. Among the villages he's wiped out, there were some protected by many knights. Yet they were all slaughtered. Not a single one left. In Tehran's mind, a thought began to form. Someone who can kill many knights? Maybe he's the opponent I need. The weak beasts along the road aren't enough to help me grow stronger anymore. After a moment's thought, Tehran replied clearly, fine. A brief smile appeared on Basen's lips, but Tehran immediately added, first, get the child to safety. After things temporarily settled down, the group quickly left the ruined village, where the burnt smell of ash and death still lingered. They took the girl to a nearby settlement and found an honest-looking man to entrust her to. Tehran didn't say much, just quietly handed over a pouch of money, his voice deep but firm. This is enough to raise the child until she's an adult. The man nodded hastily, his eyes lighting up at the money in front of him. Of course, leave it to me. But as soon as the man took the pouch, Tehran's eyes narrowed in warning. In a few years, I'll be coming back to check. So you'd better think carefully about what you do. The man's body trembled strangely, terrified by the threat. The scene quickly shifted back to the burned village. The wind blew through the collapsed roofs, carrying a layer of fine ash that floated in the air. The Asha tracker stepped forward, her eyes focused. Every gesture was careful, as if she were touching invisible traces left behind. How is it? We need to look a bit more. Her voice was soft but certain. Let's go. Bisen immediately asked. Which direction? Asha turned and began to lead the way. Her footsteps were decisive as she tried to track the faint scent remaining in the air. Tehran observed from behind, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. Specifically, how are you tracking him? Asha didn't turn back, responding flatly as if it were the most normal thing in the world. First, I'll find a man's footprints. When we get to the main road, I'll follow the lingering smell of ash. She paused for a beat. If he hasn't changed his clothes, the ash will definitely still be on him. Tehran nodded slightly, thinking to himself, quite professional. Was the only reason he hadn't been found before just a lack of basic information? Suddenly, Asha stopped, and the air seemed to halt with her movement. Found it. The group began to speed up, following close behind her. Wait, Asha slowed down a bit. The scenery gradually changed. The flat dirt roads gave way to rugged terrain with jagged rocks. Finally, they stopped in front of a pitch-black cave, like a giant mouth gaping open to swallow the light. Bisen turned back, her voice low. Tehran, come with me. The rest of you, stay close behind. The two of them headed inside. In their hands were light orbs that illuminated the path ahead. Their shadows stretched across the rock walls, distorted and flickering like watching spirits. Their shadows stretched across the rock walls, distorted and flickering like watching spirits. Asha stood behind, hesitant, as if sensing something was wrong. There's one person. The answer made the air even heavier. Each footstep echoed in the cave like an invisible warning. And then, as they reached the end of the cave, they finally saw him. The mage stood there among bright torches. His gaze was strangely calm. He smiled faintly with his distorted face, which was covered in burned scars. What wind brings you all to such a remote place? Tehran didn't respond. He just asked briefly, is it him? Asha focused for a moment and then nodded. The scent is very clear. It's him. Immediately, Bisen raised her bow, her eyes turning sharp. I'll confirm it. Are you the one who has been kidnapping and burning villagers alive recently? The mage tilted his head, feigning confusion. I'm not sure what you're talking about. But before he could finish, his hand moved to launch a preemptive strike. Flames erupted violently, and a horrific explosion shook the entire cave. The pressure knocked several knights backward. But amidst that wave of fire, Tehran and Bisen stood still as if nothing had happened. An invisible shield had appeared, completely neutralizing the attack force. The mage froze for a moment at the sight. That single instant was more than enough for a counterattack. Bisen's arrow shot forward, so precise it was almost impossible to dodge. It struck him right in the leg, causing blood to spray out. The mage slumped to one knee, but his eyes flashed with madness. Without hesitation, he activated another of his abilities. The ground shook and massive stone blocks rose up, coalescing into giant, twisted, heavy arms, as if the earth itself were coming to life. Turan frowned slightly. Earth manipulation? Wasn't his ability just fire? The stone arms lunged forward with crushing weight. He moved instantly, dodging each attack. Every strike made the ground crack. Turan spun in midair, pulling out his legendary slingshot to counterattack. The arsonist pointed his remaining arm toward him. But before he could cast his magic, one of the stone arms was smashed and completely severed. But Turan didn't stop. He continued to charge forward. Mana continued to surge. This time, it was a completely different energy. Electricity began to dance around his hand. Blue-white sparks flashed, carrying destructive power. A lightning bolt struck his body. The mage let out a pathetic scream. His body convulsed violently before he collapsed to the ground. The magic taught by Misa had worked. Bisin struggled to crawl out from the dirt and rocks. She looked toward Turan and the arsonist, where the man had fallen unconscious after taking the full hit. She walked over to his side and spoke. "Is it over?" "Maybe. I'll handle him. You go check on the others." Without waiting for a response, he scattered some seeds onto the ground. They sprouted instantly, growing at an absurd speed into thick vines that tightly bound the mage's body, locking down every movement. Turan stepped closer, his gaze cold. "I've locked his vision and movement. That's it." Turan pulled a knife from his pouch and spoke. "Wake up." As soon as he regained consciousness, the arsonist tried to use more mana to escape. Turan immediately pressed the knife blade to his throat. "If you dare use even a drop of mana, I'll kill you on the spot." The mage trembled, his voice breaking. "Who are you? How did you find me?" "It doesn't matter. You're the arsonist, right?" Only the sound of breathing and silence filled the quiet space. There was no answer. Seeing this, Turan directly stabbed the knife into his thigh. The blade pierced through his knee painfully. "Aya," Turan asked, his voice dropping as deep as an abyss. "Answer me. Why would a stray noble like you burn civilians alive?" In his heart, he had only one conclusion. A murderer doesn't deserve forgiveness. The mage trembled and then burst into a crazed laugh. God told me to do it. If I burn the flesh and souls of sinners, I will go to him." The group behind them was stunned. What on earth was he talking about? The arsonist continued, his voice full of hysteria. "He taught me how to steal the bloodlines of others. Just a few more people, and I'll have the fire bloodline." Bisin turned away, her face full of disgust. "He's insane. How can you steal an innate bloodline like that? Committing so many massacres for such a stupid reason." But on the other side, Turan no longer looked at him like he was just a crazy person. His gaze darkened. An old memory suddenly surfaced in his mind. Even commoners could get stronger by killing magic beasts. I've seen that many times." The mage's voice still rang out like a curse. "Just a few more people, and I'll have the power." The air became suffocatingly heavy. In that moment, a thought slowly formed in Turan's mind. These weren't just the words of a madman. Perhaps I've accidentally stumbled upon the secret of this world. Without a moment's hesitation, Turan immediately swung his knife and finished off the crazed mage. His lifeless body slumped to the ground before everyone's eyes, blood splattering. That horrific sight made several people in Turan's group feel uneasy, their hearts filled with discomfort. A man whose condition had worsened saw that he was surrounded by people asking questions. He tried to explain in a trembling voice. "Killing someone who was already tied up and couldn't resist, it's a bit too cruel, like we're just slaughtering." Hearing that, Bisin immediately spoke up to stop him. "Don't say such stupid things. We all almost died here, yet you're showing compassion for him. Besides, when you think about the number of people that bastard killed, skinning him alive would still be too merciful." After that, Turan quietly turned around and picked up a book lying on the ground. He slowly opened the book page by page and began to read it. This much was certainly enough to prove that he was indeed the arsonist. Flipping through the pages, he muttered, "I've never seen these combination formulas before. Did that voice claiming to be a god teach him all of this?" While he was still lost in thought, the archer's voice rang out from behind him. "Lord Turan." She was calling him over to take the next step. "Let's begin the absorption." Not long after, the entire group began to absorb the mana in their own individual ways. A stream of blue magic power filled the dark cave. Time passed quickly, and the scene shifted to a man speaking with an admiring tone. "Congratulations, Lady Bisin. I never imagined you would catch the arsonist. A new star has truly emerged in the Carmane house. Vicen stepped forward to receive the reward and calmly replied, "You flatter me, sir." Afterward, she turned to Tehran and said, "We plan to wander for a while longer, hunting monsters and train." Handing a heavy bag of money to Tehran, she continued, "What about you? What do you plan to do next?" Handing a heavy bag of money to Tehran, she continued, "What about you? What do you plan to do next?" "Oh, I see." She lowered her voice a bit and whispered, "Regarding what I said yesterday about what that madman told us, will you keep it a secret?" Tehran nodded, his voice steady. "Yes, I won't go around talking about it. Whether it's true or not, that information is enough to cause massive chaos." Vicen nodded slightly, smiled, and said goodbye. "All right, see you next time." With that, everyone went their separate ways. Watching them leave, Tehran thought to himself, since there is no absolute proof yet, there is no need to mention it. He continued his journey alone, as the air around him gradually became muggy and scorching hot. It was clear that he was entering a desert region. After a long stretch of travel, Tehran muttered, "The air is getting more and more humid." He gently flicked his fingers, observing the changes in his abilities. The power of fire had decreased significantly, while the amount of mana consumed had increased. Using fire magic in this area is going to be quite a hassle, but he stopped immediately after. In his other hand, a large orb of water quickly formed with ease. Looking at it, Tehran came to a conclusion. This type has become much easier. That means I'm almost where I need to be. Before Tehran's eyes, a vast port city gradually appeared, with ships bobbing on the deep blue sea under a brilliant sun. The town grew even more bustling with a flow of people passing back and forth. Inside a tavern, a group of sailors was chatting boisterously. One man asked, "Are you guys planning to weigh anchor tomorrow?" The sailor wearing an eye patch replied, "That's right, heading back to that damn terrifying desert again. Those mermen along the way kept throwing spears at our ship. Last time, the bottom of the hull was shot full of holes like a honeycomb." Another man asked in surprise, "Was it really that serious?" An old man sitting nearby grumbled with irritation, "And those damn pirates too." The one-eyed sailor lamented, "If this keeps up, instead of earning a sailor's wage, we'll have to save up for our own funeral costs. I really need a good night to come along." Just then, Tehran walked up, stopped in front of the group, and asked directly, "Excuse me, are you all heading toward the Emerald Desert?" The one-eyed man looked at him and replied curtly, "We're departing tomorrow, but the ship is fully loaded with cargo. There's no room for any passengers and definitely no room for an extra barrel of wine. Taking one person means leaving behind a barrel of wine, and that goes against my principles." Seeing the man's hesitation, Tehran calmly placed his hand on a cup. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" But before anyone could understand, the cup was suddenly covered by a strange and overwhelming layer of ice. But before anyone could understand, the cup was suddenly covered by a strange and overwhelming layer of ice. The men nearby immediately stood up, their voices full of respect. "Please forgive us, sir. We didn't expect a great night to come to such a remote place." Tehran waved his hand dismissively. "Just speak comfortably with me. I'm actually the one here looking for work." The men nearby immediately stood up, their voices full of respect. "Please forgive us, sir. We didn't expect a great night to come to such a remote place." Tehran waved his hand dismissively. "Just speak comfortably with me. I'm actually the one here looking for work. I'm not a passenger, but a hireling. If the ship is attacked by pirates or mermen, I'll step in to help. Consider that my fare." The one-eyed man let out an honest sigh. "It seems you've already heard. Our ship is very poor. We don't even have a salary or a room befitting a knight status." Tehran remained unperturbed. "I don't care about the salary or the conditions. My only goal is to reach Enr." The one-eyed man stood up abruptly and laughed loudly. "Really? All right, it's a deal then. You can board the ship with us immediately." And so, Tehran was welcomed aboard and began his journey. The scene shifted to a place in complete chaos, with many houses burning fiercely and flames reaching high into the sky. A brutal attack from the Dark Elf tribe was underway. The people tried to fight back, but they were clearly falling into a disadvantage. A crazed Dark Elf charged forward, screaming at the top of his lungs. The knight quickly swung the sword in his hand and sliced through the elf's body. But immediately after, other elves surged forward in a relentless attack. The young knight struggled to hold them off. As soon as one was cut down, another took his place. The situation grew increasingly desperate. Their numbers were almost endless, and each one was filled with insane bloodlust. The knight's face showed clear anxiety. Damn it, if this keeps up. Just as the situation seemed hopeless, a brilliant bolt of golden lightning suddenly flashed across the sky. In an instant, all the dark elves in the vicinity were incinerated by the terrifying heat. From within the fading light, Mysa appeared with an overwhelming presence. Seeing her, the knight breathed a sigh of relief. "Thank you, milady." Mysa looked at him calmly but firmly. "Return to your unit." He immediately replied, "Yes, milady," and dashed back into the battlefield without hesitation. Mysa stood there, her demeanor calm, yet full of authority. Just then, a man approached from behind and asked worriedly, "Mysa, are you hurt anywhere?" This was Vice Captain Kadarum of the Arabion family. When Mysa shook her head slightly to indicate she was fine, he continued, "Don't push yourself too hard. Your life is worth much more than the lives of several knights combined." However, Mysa didn't care about herself, her voice firm. "I'm fine. More importantly, how was the battle going?" Kadarum replied, "Not bad. At this rate, this area will be reclaimed soon, though we still haven't found the tunnel." Hearing this, Mysa replied in a sharp tone, "Notify me when you find it. I will go there personally." Watching her walk away, her uncle could not hide his irritation. He muttered with annoyance, "My brother has raised this child far too permissive. If this continues, she'll end up exactly like her mother and her younger brother." The scene shifted back to the ship sailing on the vast ocean. Turan stood quietly in a corner, looking out at the endless ocean before him. As the sea breeze blew past, he sank deep into thought. "Even if I reach that land, I won't know where to start looking for clues. I don't even know my father's current condition. If I rush in blindly without a plan, who knows what might happen? The only clues I have are a few old items and a portrait of my mother. I don't know how long it will take to find information about her with just these things." Right then, someone tapped his shoulder from behind. It was the one-eyed captain. His tone was light. "Sir Knight, if you keep staring like that, you're going to burn a hole through the bottom of the sea. What's on your mind?" Turan snapped out of it and replied calmly, "I was just thinking about how vast the sea is." He laughed softly. "It is vast indeed, absolutely boundless. I hear people from the mainland get seasick just by looking at it. Can you handle it?" "I'm Fina," he continued cheerfully. "By the way, I hear you're learning the ropes of sailing from our assistant. A noble knight, learning everything from tying knots to pulling sails. He's quite excited because you're picking it up so fast." Turan smiled slightly. "I just thought learning more would be beneficial, and it's actually more interesting than I expected." At that moment, a sailor shouted, "Time to eat." The captain turned back and clapped his hands. "Come on, eat before working. Everyone to the galley." All the sailors gathered together and began their meal. As Turan sat with them, an old man approached and said, "It's not as good as food on land, but at least we have these pickles. If it weren't for them, we'd all have died of gum disease long ago." Turan asked curiously, "Gum disease?" The old man nodded and explained, "That's right, the disease that makes your gums bleed constantly until you die, but eating sour food can cure it. Fruit spoils easily at sea, so pickles are the best option. Even though the taste is terrible, we have to make do." After listening, Turan said sincerely, "That's fascinating. Where did you learn this from?" The old man shrugged. "I'm sure someone discovered it, and it slowly spread. I heard that before people knew this, they even used to eat mermen raw." Turan was slightly surprised. "Oh." Just then, the sailor on the crow's nest suddenly shouted, "Medium-sized ship at 2 o'clock." Someone immediately asked in a panic, "Is it pirates?" The lookout narrowed his eyes, peering into the distance. "I don't know. I don't see any family crest flying." The old man nearby muttered with a worried look, "I have a bad feeling. It's probably pirates. The weather is too nice today, no rain, everything is going too smoothly." Without hesitation, the captain's voice rang out sharply, "Prepare for battle immediately." All the sailors instantly jumped into position, grabbing their weapons with rising spirits. The old man asked the one-eyed captain nervously, "Captain, what should we do now? Should we turn back and run? They're a bit faster than us. If the chase goes on too long, they'll catch up. If the wind is favorable, maybe we can reach a nearby island before they catch us." The captain didn't answer immediately but turned to Turan. "What do you think of this situation?" Turan replied calmly, "As long as they don't have any knights or nobles on their side, it won't be a problem." Hearing that, The captain clenched his jaw and ordered, "All right, turn the ship around. We'll face them." All the sailors erupted with spirit, shouting Turan's name, their fear replaced by a fierce determination to fight the enemy. At the same time, on the pirate ship opposite them, they were fully armed, waiting and staring at them. "Hey, stop the ship and hand over all your money if you want to live," Turan asked softly. "If we surrender, will they really spare us?" The first mate laughed bitterly, "Cutting off our legs and throwing us into the sea. Does that count as sparing us?" Turan nodded slightly. "Just as I thought." With that, he stepped forward without hesitation and jumped onto the pirate ship. The pirates recoiled in shock, screaming in panic. "What? Who is this guy? What are you all just standing there for? Everyone, charge and kill him." But before they could react, countless sharp ice shards were created from the water of the vast surrounding sea. The shards surged forward like a rain of bullets that could not be stopped, piercing through the pirates' bodies like thin pieces of paper. The pirates fell one by one, unable to resist even a little. Seeing them collapse, Turan said coldly, "If these are the kind of people they are, I don't need to show any mercy." After countless pirates had been killed, the remaining ones turned their hateful gazes toward Turan simultaneously. Among them, fear began to spread visibly. One man stepped forward, shouting loudly to his comrades, "Don't be afraid, you idiots. If we don't kill him, we're dead for sure." That shout seemed to clear away all hesitation. Driven into a corner, all the surviving pirates charged at once like a flood. But Turan still stood his ground, his gaze cold and calm, as if it were all just child's play. Right then, a thin stream of water appeared in front of Turan and shot forward. Before the pirates could touch Turan, that stream of water transformed into a sharp ice sword in his hand. With a single clean sweep, the pirates in front of him were sliced in half instantly. From the rear, a roar rang out. "Don't stop! Kill him right here!" Encouraged, another group charged, but the result was still death in the blink of an eye. Both men were pierced through the head and collapsed. Another man lunged straight at Turan with a spear. Turan calmly blocked it, the ice blade in his hand swinging up to finish him on the spot. Turan calmly blocked it, the ice blade in his hand swinging up to finish him on the spot. Even so, the number of pirates was still very high. He jumped back, dodging a downward strike, but the pirates clung to him like a swarm of hungry leeches. Realizing he couldn't deal with each one easily, Turan unleashed a powerful attack forward. His blade turned into liquid, extending into a sharp whip that swept across the crowd of pirates. The terrifying power wiped out a line of pirates in an instant, cutting them in two. Their bodies fell like heavy, useless chunks of meat. Amidst the chaos, a pirate faking death from behind suddenly jumped up and grabbed Turan tightly. He raised a knife with the intention of stabbing Turan's neck. Die. But at that very moment, a grim reality hit him. Two other pirates lunged forward immediately, their sword and spear thrusting straight at him, thinking they had won. But no, the knife in his hand couldn't even pierce Turan's neck. Turan's eyes were now filled with killing intent as he glanced back coldly. The pirate was confused and could not believe it. Why won't the knife go through? But before he could understand what was happening, Turan made his move. In a split second, Turan killed both the man holding him from behind and the two men charging from the front. It all happened too fast for anyone to react. Turan's strikes were sharp, precise, and almost impossible to follow with the naked eye. Fresh blood splattered all over Turan, dyeing him red from head to toe. However, the more he was covered in blood, the more he exuded a cold and terrifying aura. His face remained deathly calm, and the aura from his whole body made anyone who looked at him tremble with fear. The scene of the massacre was now left with only painful screams that eventually fell silent. From Turan's body, a horrific killing intent radiated out, so heavy that even the surrounding air became suffocated. At this point, the sailors from the other ship began throwing ropes to board. When they stepped on deck and witnessed the scene, the captain couldn't help but say, "You really cleaned up quite thoroughly. Are you planning on taking up cleaning as a side job?" "Cleaned it so well that my sailors have nothing left to do. Truly terrifying. Long live the knight." All the sailors immediately cheered along, their voices full of excitement and admiration. "Long live the knight. You bastards, you got what you deserve." A sailor stepped forward and spoke respectfully. "Sir Knight, you should go see the ship's doctor first." Turan shook his head calmly. "No need. I'm not injured at all. All of this is pirate blood." A while later, The sailors reported details about the ship they had just seized. The captain took Turan into the cabin and explained clearly. This ship was originally a merchant vessel from Ibiza that went missing a few years ago. The pirates had repainted it and used it for their crimes. Typical for those scoundrels. Since you handled the whole thing alone, ownership of this ship belongs entirely to you. Congratulations, you're the new captain. Turan didn't show joy or excitement upon hearing this. Is that so? He just looked at the captain and asked directly, his voice almost indifferent. So what am I supposed to do with it? The captain smiled and offered a few options. One is you take it back to Ibiza and return it to the original owner. After some pleasantries, you'll receive a handsome reward. But the paperwork with those officials will definitely be a huge hassle. It would probably take 1 or 2 months. In my opinion, the best way is for you to sell it in the North Sea archipelago. They really need ships there, and naturally, selling to the person who needs it most will get you a higher price. However, to sail a large ship like this, I'd have to use my own sailors to man it. Turan thought for a moment and then nodded. I can't sail it alone anyway. If I use your men, I will pay them fairly. The captain laughed loudly with satisfaction. You're a sensible man. If you give the sailors a portion of the profit as a service fee, I'll take care of everything. Turan made a direct offer. Then I'll leave the entire sail to you. Can you take 20%? The captain smiled radiantly. Huh. How could I refuse such a bargain? I know a lot of people there. I'll definitely get a good price. Just then, a sailor rushed in, shouting, Captain, there's a merman. The captain jumped up in surprise. What? Even the mermen are attacking us. No, sir. The pirates caught a merman and are keeping it locked in the hold. Both the captain and Turan were surprised. Without hesitation, they immediately went down to the lower deck. So that valuable merchandise is in there. Yes, I just heard the report. I haven't seen it with my own eyes yet. Well done, Lord Turan. Do you want to take a look at the merchandise? Sure. Tell me, do mermen really sell for that much? Well, if it's a beautiful mermaid, then yes, absolute. Those filthy rich old nobles on land really love this stuff. After all, anything that seems mysterious piques their curiosity. They rumor that mermen have a deadly charm. The whole door slowly opened. This way, please. Turan froze, observing intently. Before them was a very young merman, tightly bound. The captain sighed. What a shame. It turns out to be a male. This is going to drop the price significantly. Those rich folks have no interest in a merman unless he's from a legendary royal lineage that can transform. The merman immediately barked in anger. How dare you look down on me? I am Armani, the 47th prince of North Estade. Show some respect, you savages. Turan turned to the captain. Is this kid really a prince? The captain shrugged. He looks the part, but he could be making it up. The captain stepped forward, curious. So, can you turn into a fish, Mr. Merman Prince? I can't do it right now. Why not? The merman replied. How can I transform when I'm tied up on land like this? I can only transform when I'm in the water and in top health. Turan and the captain looked at each other. He was looking for an excuse to trick them and escape. So, what do you plan to do with him? I heard mermen often eat humans, right? That's true. Then just kill him and be done with it. Everyone said he's not worth a penny anyway. If he's a real prince, that would be interesting. But if we believe this brat's words and let him go, and he dives away forever, we'll look like total fools. His hands slowly rose. Streams of mana began to appear threateningly. The merman still protested stubbornly. Stop that. How dare you? But looking at that dangerous flow of mana, his tone became earnest. I swear I've never eaten a human. I haven't even had the thought. The atmosphere became extremely tense. 2 pairs of eyes staring at each other in the silent room. Armani screamed in panic. If you spare me, I'll show you a treasure. Turan paused slightly. A treasure. That's right, a massive treasure. The treasure left behind by the goddess Freya, whom you humans worship. Time passed until sunset, and the group's ship docked at an island to find a buyer. The sailors cheered as soon as they set foot on land. Finally on solid ground. We need to have ourselves a real drinking session. Turan stood on high ground, observing with the captain. So, have you finished the calculations? He turned and replied. Fortunately, that place isn't too far from here. Let me make a trip, and I'll be back tonight. The scene shifted to late night. Turan was rowing a small boat, bringing a shackled Armani along. Armani asked irritably, Why do you have to shackle me like this? I am a prince. I will keep my word, Armani continued worriedly. If there really is a treasure, you'll let me go, right? Turan replied shortly. Yeah. The two of them slowly left the dock in the small boat. Don't blame me if you're disappointed. It's a treasure of Freya. For someone like you, it's extremely valuable. I get it. Just lead the way properly. A moment later, Turan slowly opened his eyes, also looking ahead. Armani pointed to a small island rising out of the sea and said confidently, It's right there. Turan nodded slightly. All right. Turan lowered his hand to the water, his fingers touching the surface of the sea as he activated search magic through the water. Turan whispered the activation for the probe, targeting mermen. Instantly, countless undersea creatures appeared clearly before his eyes. Schools of fish swam with the currents, and giant sea creatures glided through the deep layers. After observing for a while, Turan opened his eyes and thought, Luckily, he's not leading me to their lair. Not long after, the two of them reached the island. They tied the boat near the shore and stepped onto land, continuing deeper inside. Armani walked while looking around anxiously, trying to recall the location. He muttered, It's definitely around here. No, it's right here. I remember it clearly. Suddenly, Armani cried out, Found it! Over there, look! Turan followed his gaze and saw a small pond hidden in the middle of the island. Turan asked, It's not very deep, is it? Armani nodded, Yeah, only about 300 meters. Turan looked at Armani with an expression of pure disbelief, as if saying, What did he just say? A moment later, Armani was tightly bound with several coils of rope. He struggled frantically, shouting in anger, What are you doing? You let me go just to tie me up again? Do you think I'm going to run away? If you drown down there, I'll starve to death. Ignoring the complaints entirely, Turan replied calmly, Then you'd better pray that doesn't happen. Turan took off his outer coat, tossed it aside, and prepared to dive. Before jumping, he gave Armani one last glance. Wait here. Instantly, Turan disappeared beneath the surface, leaving only shifting bubbles as he plunged into the water. Deep beneath the surface, Turan slowly descended into the darkness, whispering to himself to see what was truly hidden down there. The surrounding water grew increasingly dark and mysterious. As he dove deeper, Turan saw ancient statues and ruins resembling giant, crumbled serpents. Suddenly, Turan's eyes locked onto something massive. An ancient stone serpent coiled around a large rock. Turan looked up at the head of the serpent and saw something that filled him with amazement. A humanoid statue was standing there. He had finally found it. The shock caused him to accidentally open his mouth, and air escaped into the water. Turan quickly covered his mouth, then swam closer to observe more carefully. The statue looked incredibly lifelike, almost as if it weren't a sculpture at all, but a real human who had been sealed at the bottom of the sea for countless ages. The more Turan looked, the stranger it felt. Is this truly the body of a living person? The body remained perfectly intact, neither turning into a spectral form nor rotting away. Suddenly, Turan spotted something near the statue's waist, an object emitting a faint golden light, catching his attention. It was an object resembling a mystical compass. This was undoubtedly the treasure Armani had mentioned. A while later, Turan breached the surface and returned to shore, his breathing slightly heavy. Seeing Turan safe, Armani cheered excitedly. Did you find it? You found it, didn't you? Turan nodded calmly. For now, yes. At that exact moment, the water around Armani began to gather. Turan paused, observing intently. The flows of energy running through the merman's body were clearly visible before his eyes. He looked down at the compass in his hand and thought, So that's it? Now I can sense the life and energy within. Turan quietly used his magic to tear apart all the ropes and chains binding the merman. Stunned, Armani looked at Turan in shock and spoke. I didn't expect you to let me go so easily. I thought you'd take the treasure and then sell me to someone else. Turan replied with a composed face. I gave my word. I return what I receive. Since you led the way without deceiving me, I will keep my promise. Armani was overjoyed, his voice trembling. Thank you. You are a kind-hearted demon. If there is a war with humans in the future, I'll tell my father to spare you. Putting his clothes back on, Turan smirked. Stop talking nonsense. Armani didn't respond, quietly moving toward the sea before jumping straight into the water. As he touched the water, his body began to transform, revealing the true form of a sea creature. Turan watched the scene and thought to himself, it turns out he wasn't lying about being a prince. The next morning, on the ship anchored near the island, the atmosphere was far from peaceful. The next morning, On the ship anchored near the island, the atmosphere was far from peaceful. The sounds of painful groans echoed everywhere. The old man punishing them didn't stop shouting. Now, everyone repeat after me. We will never be late again. Resistance means death. Having just returned to the ship, Turan witnessed the brutal scene and asked a sailor, "What's going on?" The man gave a bitter smile. "They're punishing those who were late yesterday. Not just late, but they caused trouble at the harbor tavern. This is the result of ignoring the captain's warning." Turan quietly observed the flow of internal energy within each person. Most were blue, but suddenly Turan noticed one individual with a brilliant red internal energy. Turan analyzed it silently and realized they were exhausted. "Where's the captain?" He went onto the island to find a buyer for this ship. The scene shifted to where the captain was negotiating with a man. When Turan appeared, the captain smiled and introduced him. "You're here. Turan, how did the deal go?" He explained calmly. "Let me introduce you first. This is Captain Samuel, the man who agreed to buy the ship." Samuel greeted him politely. "A pleasure to meet you. 1,000 gold coins. We've agreed on a lump sum payment." After hearing this, Turan said calmly, "The price isn't bad, but there's a problem." "A problem? Carrying that much gold is very inconvenient. Can I receive magic artifacts or holy relics of equivalent value instead?" Samuel shook his head. "Things that precious aren't found here. You'll have to go to Komad for that." Hearing the name, Turan softly repeated, "Komad." Samuel nodded. "That is the second city of the territory ruled by the Armani family. They have the bloodline of beast tamers there. With this amount of money, you should buy yourself a spirit beast." Hearing that reminded him of his friend's horse. Turan thought, a beast that can understand speech would be very useful for the journey ahead. Back on the ship, the atmosphere had lightened. The sailors were chatting happily. This trip was a real bargain. Those pirates turned into a bag of money for us in an instant. Isn't that because Lord Turan was with us? Suddenly, a panicked shout rang out. "Black clouds ahead! A massive storm! Everyone prepare!" The entire ship immediately fell into chaos. The old man roared, "Lower the sails now! Move the cargo inside, quickly! If you don't want to become fish bait, give it your all." Amidst the violent storm, giant waves slammed repeatedly against the hull, turning everything upside down. Several sailors carrying cargo were knocked down by a wave, nearly falling into the sea. But at the critical moment, they suddenly stopped in midair. All the goods and the men hung suspended in space, then slowly flew back onto the ship. Turan had used his magical power to save all their lives. He calmly ordered, "Get down to the lower deck, quickly." Understood. Afterward, Turan used his abilities to retract all the open sails, moving all the cargo into the hold safely in the blink of an eye. Everyone retreated inside. Giant waves, like towering walls of water, crashed down. The sea had become ferocious, as if wanting to swallow everything. Amidst the fierce storm, the ship was hammered by waves, swaying as if it might break apart at any second. All the sailors huddled in the lower deck, everyone shivering from the cold. Turan then entered the cabin. Seeing Turan, everyone's eyes lit up with gratitude. "Thank you, sir. Thank you for saving us." Turan looked around, his voice calm but authoritative. "Is anyone injured?" The sailors shook their heads vigorously, though it was clear everyone was suffering. The captain also came down to the hold, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. "Thank you, Lord Turan. If the sails hadn't been lowered in time, we would have sunk. Will we survive this storm?" The captain looked at everyone shivering from the cold and said calmly, "Now, we can only rely on this ship and the navigator's skill." More importantly, the sailors were sitting on the floor, trembling from the freezing cold. Seeing this, Turan didn't hesitate to speak up. "Everyone, gather around me." The captain startled, asking worriedly, "Are you planning to light a fire on a narrow wooden boat like this? That's dangerous. I only need to control it so it doesn't spread." In the next moment, Turan flicked his fingers, and a massive fireball appeared before everyone's eyes. The flame did not spread or cause a fire. Instead, it was perfectly controlled, radiating a gentle warmth throughout the cabin. The warm heat chased away the biting cold that was gnawing at the sailors' bodies. Everyone's eyes widened in amazement, and they rushed to warm themselves around the magical fire, looking as happy as if they had been brought back to life. The captain stood stunned at the sight. "I have never heard of magic so refined." He looked at Tehran and the warm glow enveloping the ship. Finally understanding the profound meaning of the saying the elders always reminded him of, humans serve mages, and mages will rule over humans. But at the same time, they shall also protect them.